Hello again, everybody, and welcome to another exciting episode of the Jim Cornette Experience, where today we're going to talk about everything from current AEW to classic TNA to prove that the more things change, the more they remain the same. And joining me, my co-host hasn't changed, Hawaiian Brian, the podcasting lion, the king of the Arcadian Vanguard Podcast Network, Mr. Co-host to you. You never change the channel when he's on the air. The great Brian Last, everybody.
Aloha, Jim. A pleasure to be here once again. You surprised me with the news of what one of the topics we're going to discuss here on the show will be today, and I'm pretty excited about that. And we have Dynamite.
And I got some news that'll blow your mind. Brian, I'm on some drugs. I'm doing this show on drugs, on pharmaceuticals. I've got a variety of conditions here that we're going to discuss just briefly, and don't give me any falderall, you cretins, you and Jay Sharknado, about the, well, he's got the dry mouth or he's a little raspy or whatever. Not only am I on a heavy-duty antihistamine, but I'm also on the steroids. I could break out into a rage at any moment. So tread lightly around me today, Mr. Last, because it could be your last day.
Well, what happened to you? I mean, you were fine the other day.
Well, I'm all right now, but last week I was in rough shape. No, I went for my annual physical and checkup at the doctor and the renewal of my, few prescriptions I take. I'm 64 years old now. I got to stay on top of this shit. And I think I said this last year. I have bad news for everybody. I'm mostly okay. But I'll have you know that before I get into what I'm on, Brian, think about this. I'm a 64-year-old man that's been involved in professional wrestling in some way or another for 50 years. And then driven 2 million miles and flown wherever the fuck I've flown to, and goddamn been flung off scaffolds. And my weight is 192 pounds, and my blood pressure was 120/84, and my cholesterol is 196.
How is this possible?
What do you think about them?
How is this possible? I think you have a funny doctor who's playing games.
No.
And lying to you about the results.
Yes,
is what I think.
I'm looking at the documentation. It's on. They took my blood. They took my blood.
Where'd they take it?
They took it in another room, and then when they brought it back, it looked so much better. No, now to be quite honest, I do have to get off of the Reese cups and eating cake, because the only high thing was my glucose is mildly elevated, which can be corrected. As the phrase goes, corrected with diet means quit eating the fucking Reese cups, you fat fuck, right? Well, formerly fat fuck. But I got the weakness for things like that. And then the antihistamine I'm on is for my squishy ear that has been squishy. I've referred to it on the program numerous times, that I've been echoing in my right ear. It's part. He said, "Oh yeah," he looked in with the little pointed thing, and he said, "Yeah, it's about 40 or 50% obstructed or colluded or occluded or whatever the fucking phrase was." And he suggests that we start, because when I sniff, I can feel it in this. Let's start with the antihistamines. Take one of these every day for 30 days and see if that, and then we'll go from there. Well, it's been 3 fucking days, and it's dried up everything except my fucking ear. Right now, I'm sitting, my mouth is so fucking dry, I'm wanting to walk over to the cold window and lick it to just get some goddamn moisture. So I'm drinking so many Sprites, I'm having to piss in a jug at the desk like fucking Jim Ross on a 4-hour pay-per-view. I'm drinking now. And my throat's dry, my mouth is dry, my eyes are a little dry, but the ear is still echoing. And I'm on the steroids, Brian, for my goddamn elbow tendon or muscle or whatever that I've told you about, that from when I was using that cutting cord on the pole saw this past summer. And it still bothers me on and off in various activities throughout the day when I just make some odd movement, and he's trying to boost me up a little bit. And he can give me a referral to a podiatrist. He said, well, what they need to do on that callus on your big toe that you keep having a scrape, or it feels like somebody's giving you a fucking hot foot, is they go in there and they cut the core out of that callus. And then it'll heal from the inside out.
Huh.
And I'm not sure I've decided to avail myself of that opportunity or just keep scraping off the top of it.
Oh, just do it. You won't feel anything. They'll use some lidocaine, numb the area. You won't feel anything. And then they take it out. 1, 2, 3. You put some Vaseline on it for a few weeks.
1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. It's easy as do, re, mi to cut your core out of your toe.
Len Barry. 1, 2, 3.
There you go. Well, now I know who you're talking about. That was another show, so none of our listeners know what we're talking about.
One of the random references from a previous show. It's a callback to that.
Well, see, folks, you got to keep up and listen to them in order also. And but anyway, so I'm somewhat hampered with trying to stay at a proper fucking vocal tone here today. So bear with me if I every once in a while. And I just watched the local news just to prove that it's not just chaos in the nation, but it's locally is always sucks also. There had been a trial going on, Brian. See whose side you would have been on. Now, this guy had a strong defense for what he did, what he was accused of. So apparently, this guy was married. They had 3 kids, all of them under 5. And the guy was said to have received a picture of his wife holding hands with one of her coworkers, which caused trouble in their marriage. And then he went to the trouble, I'll have you know, of cooking her because this happened on Valentine's Day, cooking her a special Valentine's Day dinner, which the quote on the news was, apparently the defense said, his dinner was not well received. That was the quote. What action do you think is appropriate for this man to take against his wife, his
hold on,
mother of his children?
I don't understand how it got to court. What's the issue that got it to court?
Well, what got it to court is after he got this picture of her holding hands with one of her coworkers, and then she didn't like the fucking Valentine's dinner that he fixed for her. He choked her. He beat her. He stabbed her 40 times.
Jesus.
While the 3 kids were all in the house, and then sent a picture of the body to a family group chat.
Wow. Yeah, I would give him the death penalty.
Do you? Well, I'm just saying. Now, see, the defense was saying, well, he
guilty.
In a fit of rage.
Guilty.
In a fit of rage, everybody can understand there's rage involved. In a fit of rage, he did these things because he was obviously coerced and
leave the house. Fuck all of her
this.
Friends. That's fix the rage. What the fuck? Yeah, death penalty. Kill him. Guilty.
Well, I don't know I don't think it's got to that phase yet where they've decided what's going to go on there, but he's guilty. We know that much, but whatever they're going to do with him has remains. But he seemed to be remorseful when he was sitting there.
There was an article in the New York Post today. Let me see if I can pull it up. It was about like a divorce that is because of an indecent proposal, from the movie, an indecent proposal that his now soon to be ex-wife received from her boss. Let me see if I can find this. But it was like she was offered millions of dollars and all this, and she was like, yeah. I guess apparently she took it. Here's the headline. Married real estate mogul offered subordinate multi-million-dollar indecent proposal to leave her husband for him, according to lawsuit. He offered her $3 million plucked from his company's stocks as part of an indecent proposal to steal her away, according to the bombshell lawsuit. Tamir Poleg, the chief executive of the Utah-based real estate firm Real Brokerage, allegedly tried to bribe Paige Steckling, a married mother of 2 who work for him.
Paige Steckling.
With heaps of cash, real estate deals, and lavish trips, according to a lawsuit filed by her husband, Michael Steckling. Michael accused Pollig of destroying his marriage through the incessant attempts to poach Paige, according to the lawsuit obtained by the Daily Mail. Paige confirmed her divorce in a statement to the outlet. My marriage ended for personal reasons, and the claims made in this lawsuit do not reflect the reality of those circumstances. I'm confident the legal process will address any inaccuracies, she said. He claimed that he and Paige never even considered divorcing until Pollig started to chase his wife. It divulges a specific deal Pollig offered her in January 2022, a glamorous $1.5 million home in Park City, Utah, and a promise to, quote, take care of her needs if she left Michael in the dust. Pollig left his wife around the same time. Paige filed for divorce in February, the lawsuit says. So he makes her the proposal in January, and then he leaves his wife, and then she leaves her husband the next month. So any thoughts on this?
Well, but I'm just wondering if they're stuck with each other, though, rather than just a business transaction. They actually have to be married and or to get living together on an ongoing basis now. Is that that's the way that I'm seeing it? It wasn't just like, hey, I'll give you. The movie was like, I'll give you $1 million, just fuck me
one night.
Yeah, and to get it over with. But this whole thing, you're stuck with each other afterwards. I don't know.
Pollig admitted,
because like Vince McMahon, who
that's right.
The story reminds me of, but Vince McMahon said to me one time when he stooged to me that Brian Lee had told him he'd leave the rest of my Smoky Mountain dates if Vince needed him early. And Vince came to me and said, if he'll do it to you, he'll do it to me. So I want to let you know. So you already know what you're fucking dealing with.
Well, Pollig admitted to the Daily Mail that he did send the email referenced in the lawsuit, but claimed he was merely offering financial support that she had requested. He flatly denied the laundry list of accusations. Quote, no offers, no romance, no interference. He told, what great stipulations there.
No disqualification.
Anything goes. Lazy marriage.
Lazy marriage.
The mogul doubled down and asserted that Paige often complained about her lackluster relationship, and he gleaned that the couple didn't share any genuine love or affection. Her soon-to-be ex-husband is seeking $5 million in damages tied to the collapse of his marriage. That's interesting. The idea you could sue. It's not even the person she had an affair with, technically. I mean, maybe they did, but it's just the idea she took an offer to have an affair or leave her husband. And then the husband gets to sue. That's interesting.
Well, and then also, but the thing is, I was going to say the problem is the most fair arrangement at that would be that if he sued, he got his fucking wife back, but then at this point he don't want her, so he'd rather have the money. Possibly he'd rather have the money anyway. Maybe he's trying to get his own fucking deal.
If you were looking for a home in Utah, would this make you seek her out as an agent, or would this make you stay away? Or would you think, maybe we'll have a good time looking at houses?
If I was looking for a home in Utah, I'd be looking for a fucking psychiatrist.
Well, that's the local news, at least from my end.
In Utah, you got a second home in Utah now?
Well, small. I feel like any small town now will be incorporated into local news, and Utah as a state is a small town.
Well, there you go. All righty. Before we get to the wrestling part, I promised today, and I'm not going to spend a lot of time on it for the people like, oh, God, we can't get away from this shit. But we have to talk about it. And as I mentioned a week or two ago when I read the email from one of the listeners thanking me for talking about it from Minneapolis, and I think I know a lot of people don't want to hear me talk about this because it's just, you don't want to think about it going on. And some of the people are like, well, I don't like to listen to politics because they ain't yours. I don't give a fuck about you. But a lot of people are just, can't I get away from it? But that's the problem, is the only reason why that some progress is being made. And that's not why I'm not just so pissed off. Some progress is being made in the court of public opinion, if nothing else, over this last deal. And we're going to mention it because I've checked in with another member of our legal team who I will get back to. And everybody knows Stephen P. New, but we got an enforcer on the team. He's a fucking guerrilla warfare fighter. And I got some information from him, but everybody by now has seen, for the listeners around the world who are not inundated with this, who don't have to look at it, ICE shot somebody else in Minneapolis 5 or 10 times in the back. His name was Alex Preddy. And of course, as soon as it happened, there was all of the top regime officials, including that little wannabe troll living under a bridge, Bovino Nazi, Bovino, and Christy Nome, slandering the guy. Their story was, oh my God, this gun-wielding, a protester brandished a weapon and came loaded, ready to do maximum damage and inflict casualties to our law enforcement. He's a domestic terrorist. But the problem was, this time, not only were there multiple videos from every angle from people doing the same thing this guy was doing, taking video with his phone, that showed that they were lied. There wasn't a car this time where they get, oh, he hit the gas. No. The ICE guys shoved this woman on her ass on a sidewalk, and when he went to pick her up, they grabbed him and jerked him off of her and threw him down, and about 6 of them started kicking the shit out of him.
Immediately started spraying him in the face, too. Immediately.
Oh, I'm sorry. They had already tear gassed him. When he turned to help the woman up, he'd already been tear gassed. I forgot. Thank you, Brian. Shoved her down on her ass, tear gassed him. He turns to try to help the woman up. They jerk him off. They continue to kick the shit out of him. They realize he's got a gun in his pants that he never went for and can't get to because he's blind with 6 people on top of him. And they pull the gun away from him. And then 2 different agents shoot him 5 to 10 times in the back. And the video, everybody sees it. They can't lie their way out of it this time. They still are. They're still trying to, but now nobody except the people in this sick world of theirs actually believe them. Everybody else has seen that they would say this if a guy fucking was standing there naked with his hands in the air. He went for an automatic rifle. That's what they've been doing. This is why when people talk about it, it means a difference. Anyway, the point is, go ahead, ask me, I'm sorry.
Did you see the statement from the NRA? Because that was one of the interesting little things here.
Yes.
He was being attacked verbally after the fact, after he was murdered, for being a domestic terrorist. He came to inflict mass damage because he was carrying a gun on him. I wouldn't have done that. I don't think that was the greatest thing to do. However, it was his right. And the people attacking him for doing that are usually the people defending everyone's right to have a gun in America. The NRA came out and said, this guy didn't do anything wrong. This guy was a legal gun carrier. He had a permit. He carried his gun. He didn't do anything. He didn't brandish it. He didn't pull it out.
That's what I'm saying. They have, Schittler and the rest of his henchmen have gotten used to be able to just blame the other guy, blame the victim, blame the whatever the fuck, to the point where they blame themselves into coming back and blaming themselves, their own fucking side, And the Second Amendment people's heads are on fire, having double knockouts. Wait a minute, we're mad at ourselves. What the fuck is going on? They championed that weasel-faced little Kyle Rittenhouse, who was a teenager, brought a fucking automatic rifle that his parents had bought for him to a Black Lives Matter protest. On the wrong side of it, he was against the Black Lives Mattering.
And he needed to bring the biggest gun he could find for some reason.
And he had an automatic assault rifle and he shot 3 people. And he got to the White House and fucking Schittler shook hands with him because he was defending his Second Amendment rights. This guy was helping a woman up off the sidewalk while he'd already been tear gassed, and they jerked him down, took his gun away from him, and shot him. And then they came out, well, he brought a firearm and brandished a firearm and came ready to do mass casualties to our law enforcement officers. And they've got the video. No, he didn't. No, he didn't. He was videoing with his cell phone. So now, again, the group who had said that their existence, the NRA, was to make sure that the fucking people carried their guns and their Second Amendment rights, they could rise up against a tyrannical government. The goddamn tyrannical government that said they shouldn't carry guns to a protest has finally arrived, and the call came from within the house. So anyway, this guy turned out to be a nurse in the intensive care unit at a veterans hospital. And his job was treating veterans who have served the country. They played a video of him giving honor to one of the patients that had passed away and reading about the freedom and patriotism and everything. And the government that he was serving the service members of has just finished shooting him in the back. So obviously, mass protests, news coverage, outrage. There are some cosmetic changes going on. See, don't think that this regime wants to change anything. They're doing this shit on purpose, and they're changing because they got caught. And they're going to do the same shit elsewhere if they can get away with it. That's why we need to talk about it. But they pulled, again, that little troll Bovino and sent him somewhere in an office somewhere to fucking fester and rot.
They took his social media accounts away from him. Did you see that? He no longer had access.
No, because I wasn't on his social fucking media. But, they've sent him somewhere. Not to prison, unfortunately. And more people are calling for Kirsty Noem's fucking... Oh, somebody called her a twatsie. I thought that was a really creative.
I've never heard that before.
They're calling for her to resign or be impeached or whatever the case. And she's already said, well, I'm just following orders. That's a familiar, Nuremberg. The governor, or I'm sorry, not the governor, but a candidate for governor in Minnesota, the next election, Walz is not running. There was a Republican that was going to run for governor. And he came out and made a statement that he was pulling out of the race because why bother? Because the National Republican Party, the administration, has made it impossible for a Republican ever to win an election in the state of Minnesota again. So he's like, fuck it. Idiots. And they're trying to rein in the ICE agents. Was it Newsom that said, no ICE agent will ever get a job in the state of California if we get these records? This will follow them the rest of their lives. The Democrats are threatening a shutdown if they don't take funding for ICE out of this bill that they again have to sign. But people are starting to recognize that's the most important thing, is they've started to turn people off of this fucking ridiculousness that aren't just hook, line, and sinker, normal, reasonable people that may have just not been tuned in. And if we don't keep calling them out on it, every time that we have to and that they do these things, they're going to try to do it elsewhere. And if we can keep this momentum going, I don't care if you vote for Democrats or independents or none of the above in the midterms. If there is a way that we can hamstring, handcuff, hold up this entire administration until the next election as much as possible, to just throw stumbling blocks in his path at everything, then hopefully the end of his term can be followed soon by the start of his sentence. But until then, so I mentioned real quick, and I will, this last thing I'm going to say. A lot of people know our legal team. Stephen P. New, of course, is one of the most famous attorneys since Atticus Finch. But another member of the team is a fellow out in California named Andre Verdun. And because this is more, whereas Stephen has definitely sued governments, as we know, the state of West Virginia and various municipalities on behalf of people, Andre, being from California, has had more background in immigration. And I'd asked him, is there a way I can publicize? Is there a fund? Because here's the thing. Look at all these videos, Brian, that we've seen of them bashing in people's windows and throwing their grandmothers down and tear gas the baby. They're trying to deport a 5-year-old child that is now in a detention center somewhere in Texas because they're going to deport him and his father at the same time. This kid's probably mentally scarred for life. That's goddamn super villain origin story. I said, is there a fund or a nonprofit organization or whatever to provide legal aid for citizens and immigrants alike to sue the United States government for damages, civil rights violations, assault, personal injury, property damage, death of a family member, instead of our taxes going to this fucking pig and his criminal family's pockets? And to further this kind of activity, at least we'd be, as the federal government, we, the people, would be paying out to these people that have been fucked with by these fucking assholes. And unfortunately, he said there is no organized, centralized movement per se where there's a boy you could boom because of not only, and he, believe me, he filled me in on the statutes of the bullshit qualified immunity, sometimes unqualified immunity that various law enforcement entities have, and the courts that have ruled and don't want to rule. And the fact that this fucking stooge has stacked many of the courts by this point. The ACLU, for the folks around the world, the American Civil Liberties Union, the ACLU is a cause that he has worked with, and he's done a lot of immigration work, and he believes in theirs. And he says you win small battles in the war, but the war is ongoing. But the more that they show who they are, the more that it chips away at their support, and we may need to make sure that everybody knows who the fuck they are for the people they shoot or the kids they lock up or the women and the elderly that they assault and gas. That all reflects on you know who, because he and his band of fanatics and whack jobs that he's surrounded himself with are the architects of it. By the way, Brian, Measles is back. You know, Measles is fucking, it's making a comeback. It's like Frankie Valli in the early 70s. It's everywhere now. You see this?
Mid 70s. I wouldn't say early 70s.
Well, you know what I'm saying. But anyway, I guess we got to talk about some wrestling on the program today, Brian. And there's somebody, he's changing his name. A guy who's so ashamed of his past, he's changing his name. No, we love him. Powerhouse Hobbs, our friend Willie Hobbs. Dusty would have loved him. Willie Hobbs, I can see it right now. And here come Willie Hobbs. Willie Hobbs is big and bad. He just fucks up everybody. Powerhouse Hobbs' new name in the WWE is going to be, well, I'm not sure, Brian. Is it Royce Keys or is it Royce Keys?
I believe it's Royce. He's not Portuguese or Brazilian.
Well, but the most famous Royce I know is a Royce.
Royce Gracie. That's right.
Royce Gracie. So, and it's spelled the same way. So don't you immediately, and he's going to be over with the Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu community, but they're all going to be at the matches. They're going, Royce, 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 Royce.
I don't know if that's going to be the problem, but before you go any further, the basic question right here at the beginning, does Royce Keys pass the name test?
First of all, in all seriousness, I guess they gave him some input or some option or whatever because Royce is his son's name, is Will Hobbs' real son's name, right? So I'm not shitting all over Royce as just a name, but for him, the way he looks, the beast that he is, the physical mountain of a man, and the combined with Keys, and I don't know where that came from. And you have Royce Keys. That sounds like some kind of evil stockbroker rather than Powerhouse Hobbs, which kind of sounds like what you see when you're looking at Will Hobbs. So, the name test may be irrelevant these days because of all of the manufactured names they've got coming through developmental. They'll just put anybody on there anyway. But I need more information.
You know, Powerhouse Hobbs was a refreshing name, actually. It's one of those things AEW got right. Just giving him the name Powerhouse. Simple. Said everything you need to say. And it worked. It's a throwback to Crusher Lasowski as opposed to just Reggie Lasowski. But to just give him a completely new NXT porn name seems stupid to me. I know they did it to Ricky Starks. They clearly have like a pecking order of guys that they think are famous enough coming off AEW TV that they won't change their name, and then other guys they will. But this is one of those times AEW had a good name for him. Ricky Starks becoming Ricky Saints, I still think is stupid. But, you know, it's still Ricky. It's still Ricky, at least.
It's close.
All of a sudden, Powerhouse Hobbs, the people who saw him in AEW, and again, all the talk we do about the ratings and stuff, a lot of people saw him in AEW. He's now going to be Royce Keys. Even Powerhouse Keys would be better than Royce. Like, it can't just be another name, just a generic. Give us a name. We need a name that we can own.
And I'm agreeing with you, except I understand both sides of it. They want to own either the Ricky Starks to Ricky Saints. I'm sure somebody in the legal department has says, well, Ricky is a common enough name, but Powerhouse indicates the intellectual property is Zabadab and Funumsum. But the point being, I know that the WWE wants to own as much as they can of the intellectual property and for the merchandising and blah, blah, blah. But it is, as AC/DC said, it's a long way to the top if you want to rock and roll. It's a long way from Powerhouse Hobbs to Royce Keys. As I said, you conjure up an image of this giant brute or this evil stockbroker. Could they not have played off of Powerhouse and Dynamo Strength? I don't fucking know. I'll get the dictionary out here in a minute if you make me. And in some way, pay an homage to what he looks like and what he has done before. And just, I can't think of a more opposite name from what he's had than what this is. But for the money, apparently. But here's the thing, and Brian, I know I've got documentation here for the accounting department sent this over. And the problem is it's accounting from Uncle Dave. And between the run-on sentences that are interrupted by parenthetical asides and the lack of punctuation for literally days at a time, he fucking loses me. But there are things that we could point out and comment on here. And also, I would question how he knows these things, except I guess we know how he knows these things. Tony Khan, come out and play. Anyway, apparently he got the information from somewhere that Hobbs got an AEW offer to stay that was basically a number that it would have been higher than anybody in the company but Jericho was making in 2019. And I'm thinking that means at least a level of $1 million, does it not?
I would think.
Would you think?
I would think it absolutely would be $1 million. Anyone. I mean, if you think about the original crew of people, Omega, Cody, Young Bucks, those were like the big guys with Jericho. Moxley. Yeah, it'd be over $1 million.
Was Moxley there at the start, or did he slink in when we weren't looking?
Well, he was there at the start of Dynamite. He debuted at a pay-per-view earlier that year, I think.
That's right.
Remember they had pay-per-views before they had TV?
That well true. They had the horse before they had the cart. But also he says it would be in line with what Bryan Danielson got to jump from WWE to AEW, maybe slightly less, but in line. That would seem to indicate a little more than just $1 million, wouldn't it? Wouldn't you think?
I would think.
More than the guys the level of Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn. I wonder why he mentions them specifically. We're making 4 years ago less than they are making now, in the range of what a guy the level of Seth Rollins was making around the same time in 2019. So AEW offered him that much money, but he obviously turned it down because he's gone to the WWE, which Uncle Dave admits he doesn't know. Wonder why. But
I wonder how many wrestlers who negotiated with Tony, even though they re-signed with WWE, are unhappy about their salary details getting out there.
Well, but also when you look at, I mean, there's many different ways and from different vantage points you can look at this. Great for Hobbs that he's had good money deals no matter which side he took that he's got and the opportunity and blah, blah, blah. But Dave is pursing this in terms of how it shows how salaries have increased now with a promotional war going on. I'll agree it's a bidding war. I don't know so much about the promotional war, but it's a bidding war. So when this bidding war, and that's what the WWE was afraid was going to happen, not because they're afraid of losing the war, but goddamn, if they see a guy that they think they can make some money with, or that can be a star in a wrestling business, or that they could elevate, but Tony wants them too, then if they take the big money offer from Tony because he wants them, WWE doesn't get them. And at the same time, they may never be developed as big a star as they could have been if WWE had got them, because they will be in AEW till whatever happens with AEW happens. And that's, I can see people in WWE getting mad, not only from a standpoint of the here and now, but a standpoint of, Jesus Christ, is this guy going to take the prime years away from a lot of just people in the wrestling talent pool for the sake of the industry that will be hamstrung or handicapped on their, or possibly prevented from getting on their path to stardom because they're taking the rich kids' money and they're hidden over there. So I think that, to me, is something we need to start looking at.
Well, again, too, it says something. If Powerhouse Hobbs had been there for years, and after all that time he was offered, if we are to believe what Dave said here, and we have no reason not to, we know who his sources are, that he was offered this amazing deal, he knows what the schedule will be. He knows there's a good chance I'll get this money, and at some point during the 3 or 5 year deal, I will just be at home for months at a time.
Yeah.
That's a reality you have to kind of expect. Even if you don't fall out with Tony, he'll just take you off TV for a while because he doesn't know what to do. He turned that down to go to WWE. WWE, see, you kind of hit on it there. They're unhappy about AEW because the more they have to pay wrestlers, the less they can gift themselves back.
Yeah.
The top executives in that company. Because you just have to look every quarter to see how much Nick Khan or Triple H or The Rock, how much any of these guys are getting in stock compensation, and then how much they turn around and sell in stock. That's why they don't want to pay the wrestlers a lot. We heard Triple H in Unreal say that his strategy with R-Truth, and again, we're talking about a wrestler in his mid-50s, but still, his strategy was make him think that it's over so that he'll come back to the table and give us a more reasonable deal. And he went the other way, and WWE did what they do now. They paid him. They've paid guys specifically not to go to AEW. They've paid guys specifically to be a part of what they're doing in Mexico against CMLL. Like, now they're paying guys. Just sometimes you have to... let me say it this way. There's probably never been a better time to call WWE's bluff on a contract and trying to get the most out of it. Never a better time than right now to do that. And again, they're putting all this money, if we are to believe it, behind Hobbs. Again, they can cut him at any time. It's a WWE deal. Makes you question why give him a shitty name. No one there could recognize that anything else, Stronghouse Jones, just anything fucking else would be better than Royce Keys. The winner of the match, the new WWE champion, Royce Keys. I don't see it. I don't see it. But again, Tony offered him a lot of money. He said no. Anna Jay apparently is floating around out there right now. Tony couldn't re-sign her.
Anna Jay's floating around? Boy.
You know what I mean.
She must have lost a little weight.
Well, Tony couldn't sign her, and we'll see what happens in the future. But Tony is now at the point where in the early days, he could throw all this money at guys and get a lot of them. And now he could throw all the money at the guys. And if they've been in AEW a while, they probably want to get out. Unless you're a top guy and you're used well. That's why MJF will probably stay there for a very, very long time. He doesn't have to worry about being at the top. He's at the top. And it's a pretty cemented place in AEW once you're there. So but they're not going to, where's Tony going to get the talent now? Because if he can't win a bidding war against WWE, what is he going to offer them?
Well, now hold it. He can still win bidding wars against the WWE when the WWE wants him to win them. There's WWE's not just going to we'll take everybody. But the problem is that most of the people who have a future want to go to the WWE. Most of the people who've had a past might want to go to AEW just for, a quick one. But there's no, as we've talked about, no game changers, no names, no stars that are going to appear that we haven't thought of and sign with AEW in the near future, or that are going to leave while they are still of major box office value. And we'll talk about the one that left here this past week and joined Tony is going to up their in-ring, and because it's AEW is going to matter zilch in terms of business.
And it's a good move for them, and he'll be a good fit there. We'll get there, but that's kind of an example of the kind of guy they can get off WWE TV right now. Ricochet, the Tomaso.
There you go.
The guys who are kind of middle of the road, mid-card, and never going to get past that in WWE.
But that's kind of the problem, is that Tony, and see here, if he was offering Hobbs that much money, if he'd have took it, okay. Just anybody out there listening to my voice right now, whatever you think about what I think about wrestling, or what wrestling you like, or whatever, make a mental list of the people that you think in AEW should be rated above in terms of they're in the main events and they're champions and all this stuff. Should have been not just work rate, but They're important people. How many were above Powerhouse Hobbs on that list? Brian, what would you say 10, 15, 20? The way that Hobbs has been presented and used.
I don't have a number, but I would think it's a lot of guys. Hobbs has never been used past being the tough best friend or the muscle or, just the guy in the group who's not the top guy.
He was the guy in the team with the guys that, okay, if he was going to make over $1 million, then those guys have to be pretty much making over $1 million, or some of them are about to, now that they've heard this, right? But I would think all of them already are. That's 20 guys making over $1 million a year. And when we went through the roster, he's got like 150 on some form of arrangement, whether he's stringing them along or has them locked down to contracts. And the productions that they're doing, where they do 2 national broadcasts with the travel and the crew and the fucking, for a while they were in the big buildings. Now they're in the small building, but still. That's, again, the points to what I've talked about with the fact that when making a huge profit, being responsible to stockholders or partners in the company at a privately held, anybody wants to make any money, Tony is free of those constraints. He don't have to make any money. And I know Uncle Dave keeps saying the second most profitable wrestling company in history because of the TV deal. Because Tony tells him that. But if you sit and do the math, and profitable from the time they signed the deal going forward, like we just started there, or how much did Tony spend to get there? But how many millions is going out to talent that we never see? And the fucking giant travel bill that comes with bringing a bunch of guys that you never see on the TV to the TV to maintain a secondary vanity promotion and all blah, blah, blah. The only way that Tony is able to do this is if he says, okay, now that I'm breaking even, I'll just break even. He doesn't care about making a profit. It's millions and millions of dollars.
Well, it pays to have a rich dad. I think that's the point. You can do whatever you want if your dad's a billionaire and he gives you a monthly allowance of plus or minus $1 billion or whatever the hell it is. But this is AEW. This is the way it's going to go, but we'll see how it goes in the future. When Tony wants to re-sign someone and WWE's in the same range salary-wise as to what Tony's offering, it's going to create a lot of interesting decisions.
Well, like I said, if you're on the way up, I'd go north. And if you're on the way down, I'd go south.
When AEW started and they signed a whole bunch of guys to multi-year deals for like $750,000 a year and more, at a time when that still was a lot of money. I mean, it still is, but you know what I mean with the way salaries have gone up in 6 years. And then when WWE realized we got nothing to worry about, they released all those people. They put them back into the general population and just hope some other group would grab them. So it'll be interesting because the money game has changed.
And that's the thing is, once they saw what was going on, they're like, okay. And they didn't think that anybody would go this far. They thought, look at this shit. And now it's malingering on. But yeah, but it's changed the boys can make a ton of money now. It's just nobody could ever work enough to get any good. Because when you got, in the WWE, they have a program in place where if you can wrestle in front of people often enough to improve and also be instructed and have some support from booking. In AEW, if you're not on their A or B show and you're doing a Ring of Honor match, is anybody wrestling 3 times a week? There ever? Would they maybe 3 times over 2 days because that's where they tape? I don't know. But the point is, you're not really going to progress So if you're on the way up in the business, go north, young man. If you're on the way down in the business, go south, young man, old man. But you could cash in another way, Brian.
Yes, you certainly
Yes.
can, Jim.
I was hoping you'd agree with me.
I
Folks,
agree.
you don't need to have billionaires bidding over you to cash in. All you've got to do is go to our friends at Prize Picks, because the big game is almost here. You know what I'm talking about. What is it, February the 8th-ish, whatever. Then there's no better way to cash in during America's biggest sporting event than Prize Picks, where it always feels good to be right. And Brian, there's a big deal going on right now. This week, Prize Picks has a max discount for the big game, which is live in the app right now. Or is it living in the app right now? I'm not sure. Is it live or live?
It is live, but it doesn't necessarily connotate.
But it's still living.
Yes.
Is it a living entity?
It's
in the app. It's spreading everywhere. It's taking over like a virus. Drake May, you've heard of him. He just needs one passing yard. More than a passing fancy. That's the next measurement up, a passing yard. One passing yard for the max discount to win. Yay! You just add another player to your lineup, and if your picks hit, you can cash in. And then you just drive down the street and find your local Prize Picks panel van, and you go up and you present your ticket. You say, "Give me that cash." And the guy just peels it out to you right there, right out the window.
Not the way it works.
Well, it's instantaneous. They've got you on file now.
It's instantaneous.
Used to, you had to
on the app. You don't need to see a panel van or go outside or see anyone.
Well, no,
windows will open.
You had to walk down the street for a while till they checked your fucking background. But now it's instantaneous because it's computerized. Sometimes if you walk down the street, you'd have to buy crack to come back.
What?
But I'll tell you what, folks. Right now, if you want to hop in your panel van and go to winning land, Prize Picks is available everywhere that you want to go, and you can find your community with the new social feeds feature. You can share Prize Picks with your friends, copy lineups, use them as an inspiration for your own picks, plagiarism, candid photography. You can even follow Prize Picks partners and tailor fade their picks with just one click. So whether you're a tailor or a fader, one way or another, one click can get you rich. And they've got early payouts. We've talked about this. Just make sure that nothing happens at the end of the game to screw things up, or you'll have people looking for you. And with Prize Picks, you don't have to wait until next year's draft to keep playing fantasy. You can have a fantasy every night if you want, even in the playoffs with the fantasy football. Brian, what football players do you fantasize about?
I don't necessarily fantasize about football players, but we could all think about the players and the big moves and the big plays during the big game on February 8th.
And the
big February 8th. Are you ready, Jim? I'm thinking big prizes, big picks. It's all happening. It's all happening.
The big downs, the big snaps, the big plays, the big hangovers afterwards. Folks, right now, join millions of users and sign up for America's #1 sports pick app. That's by downloading the Prize Pick app today and use the code JCE to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. That is the code JCE at the Prize Picks app to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. Imagine if having a fantasy like that for only $5. Well, fuck, these are prices like from Vegas in the 70s. Prize Picks, it's good to be right.
That's right, Prize Picks, it's good to be right. They will leave you alone in person. But the big game on the 8th, make sure you got your picks with Prize Picks.
Do you know you could get quality hookers in the 70s in Vegas for $50?
You said $5 before. I was going to call you out for that. That seemed like a ridiculous thing for the 70s.
Well, no, I was counting in the $50.
You said $5. You can't count. What do you mean you were counting in the $50? You said $5.
You're gonna get if that's $5 of your money, but you're gonna get $50 in lineups. That's like only contributing $5 to the around the world trip.
Again, we're talking metaphorical hookers, and you can hook your picks with Prize Picks. One more time,
Yes.
Jim. A deal for the listeners.
Well, if you had a $5 hooker, you'd have to hook your pick or pick your hook or pick your pick or whatever you just said. But for $55, well, you got a reasonable expectation. Nevertheless, that's the code JCE to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup at Prize Picks.
It's good to be right.
That's where I'd said that already. Well, Brian, at this point, it's my show, and I want to, again, now don't remember, I'm on some drugs here. I could snap at any moment, cause mayhem. It's my show, but I need your help because there's something going on between people, and I don't know who the fuck any of them are. But apparently, there is an account on Twitter that has been accused of being Tony Khan under a presumed name. And there is another guy that's been jousting with him named Nick Piccolo that apparently is a super agent to the stars, but he's been the target of assassination attempts. I don't know. Did they try to kidnap him and drop him into Guatemala from a helicopter? What is everybody is talking about this, but I've seen people screenshotting the various back and forth shenanigans between them. And I don't know how the kids read these DMs and texts and things like that. So it's pretty much gibberish to me. What the hell is going on here?
It's hard to explain. I've been watching it because a lot of people have been sending it over, and it's one of these things where whenever anyone sends an email with a link, you have to do research to understand what is happening and try to figure out who is who and what is what. Apparently, spring or summertime, this guy, Nick, I think his last name is Lo Piccolo, not Nick Piccolo, like Brian
I thought
Piccolo.
Lo was his middle name.
No, it's Nick Lo Piccolo. And he started jousting with Dave Meltzer, I believe. That was when it first came to my attention. That was the first sign that, okay, this is interesting. And, your first thought wasn't, clearly this man is the agent for a lot of big stars. And then when you see that, you're like, okay, this is an interesting tactic. Let's see what happens here.
He does come off as a bit odd for a guy that, some highfalutin, high-tootin' finance going on, an international yacht broker from Toulon, France.
Yeah, and this is coming from people who fight up with other people on Twitter and have in the past. But whatever it is, and I have here the tweet that I guess a lot of people have been sending over. I looked at his current Twitter, and well, again, you hate to make any kind of judgment, and you don't know what is really going on.
Does it run through your mind he's been hacked when you look at his Twitter?
It seems like it's either that, or if it's not that, the best thing would probably be to get away from social media and not have a social media account for a while and just enjoy life. That would be my
That's why I was wondering if this guy was a work or not. But apparently he's really representing people?
Well, he apparently represents, I don't know if anyone has changed anything, because I also have an article here that he just got, well, people are saying he got fired, but the official article is that he exits Paradigm after 17 years. This is last week. And it says here, his roster includes, because they're still going to, apparently he's taking his clients and he's going to still work with the company. So I don't know what the hell this means. Aaron Donald, Reggie Bush, Ray Lewis, Sean Avery, Amanda Serrano, Zhang Welly, Jorge Masvidal.
Not him!
Yeah, I can't even say his last name. Masvidal, CM Punk, Drew
Oh.
McIntyre,
Oh,
Jade Cargill, Liv Morgan. She doesn't get one of your moans? Liv Morgan,
well, I can't just ooh.
Tiffany Stratton,
Ooh.
and more than a dozen WWE superstars and emerging talent who are expected to benefit from his agency plus relationship in this transition, according to Deadline here. Again, it's a very
Then why
friendly
is he
article.
going back and forth with an account that he accuses of being Tony Khan under a presumed name, and saying that that Tony Khan is threatened his children or whatever the fuck's going on?
Here's a post from the 27th. It's been edited, and it has 4 images here of previous posts, so we'll talk about them after the fact. Here's what Nick Lopiccolo, this is what he tweeted out. This pro-Tony Khan account that posts things that only Tony Khan would know followed BJ Bethel and other Tony co-conspirators, followed TK bot armies, is Muslim, anti-trans, anti-Jade Cargill. Well, we just went downhill from there.
Yes,
Anti all of the same people as TK, immediately mass deleted his posts and locked his account down after I tagged the NFL commissioner on Sunday night. This must have hit too close to home because, and this is in quotes, obvious burner at Ron11479281, which is the account he's accusing of being Tony Khan, reported my ex account to get it suspended less than 15 minutes later after I tagged the NFL. And I connected the dots here. But this guy has inside knowledge if I got fired from Paradigm 12 days ago. An anti-Zionist burner, obsessed with pro wrestling and AEW, with close connections to Hollywood? Sorry, Tony. The VPN won't save you. Again, there was attachments, but any thoughts on that screed?
I recognize a lot of those words. I just don't know all of the way that they're applied in the modern world, but this guy doesn't sound balanced. As far as if what the fuck? What about if he just picked up the phone and called Tony? We know Tony Khan spends a lot of time on the phone. Just pick him up and call him and tell him this instead of telling him on fucking Twitter. And what is the goddamn, what in the world? I told on you to the commissioner of the NFL. But here's another thing that
quick, take it down. The commissioner knows. Quick.
Well, yeah. I would love to see the conversation if the commissioner of the NFL called Tony Khan and say, why is some fucking ridiculous lunatic calling me about you tweeting under a burner account about wrestling?
Now, Tony, you know we've talked about this before. Anti-trans isn't cool, but we certainly won't accept anti-Jade Cargill. What the fuck? And again, he represents Jade Cargill, the agent of Jade Cargill.
Oh, okay. Actually, the way I took it, the way he wrote it, is that, he was trying to imply that Jade Cargill was a trans person there. He just looped it in all of a sudden.
And again, there are some attachments here. Here's him responding to someone. Yep, I've been dealing with this from Tony Khan and his minions online for 7+ months. At NFL Football Ops, at NFL Commish. It crossed over into real-life harassment. And then it says, breaking news, the talent agent Nick Lopiccolo exposes Tony Khan's secret ex-burner account. Story developing, and the account that's being accused of being Tony wrote, obviously this is a burner, but it's pretty flattering to think I'm someone that high up. Or even in AEW, or wrestling at all. But I'm close enough to people Nick knows to be competent enough to say what I've said. I noticed how your replies to me are very carefully worded. You've never outright denied anything I've said. You've said things like, okay, bet, and post it, and you know exactly why. Why don't you tell the class what Paradigm told you 10 days ago about your erratic behavior, Nick?
Oh!
So, I mean, that's, again, he actually said 10 days ago. So he knows, whoever this is knows about some sort of conference or some sort of whatever.
Some sort of discussion. Again, I'm just going back to, 20 years ago, 30 years ago, if Vince was dealing with Barry Bloom, the agent for all of the first round of guys that got all these big contracts, they'd be on the phone, they'd be faxing, it'd be professional communication, not fucking the airing of the grievances on Twitter in an inexplicable fucking mishmash and threats and harassment and what the fuck?
Oh, no, I have a tweet here from Barry Bloom. I have found Paul Levesque's burner account. We'll see what this leads to. Let me just say this again. Not knowing the participants here, it seems like Nick LaPiccolo may be going through something. And again, I'm from afar. I'm not trying to pass judgment, but that's the way it comes across to me. And a break from social media at a minimum might be a healthy thing, especially if you're being harassed. That's my thought. On the other hand, Tony Khan definitely has burner accounts. And Tony Khan, when people say, oh, he was just a fan, he wasn't just a fan. He was on message board shit posting. He's a shit poster. You know what I mean? Like, he's like someone whose entire life has been online acting like his opinion matters. So don't think
he was early online, wasn't he?
So I don't think it's wrong to say Tony Khan is incredibly active on social media, especially Twitter. However, it does seem, I don't know what to think about this. What do you think about this? I'm talking too much.
Well, here's what I think about this is, my God, this guy his head's going to fucking just fall off his shoulders one of these days, Tony Khan. I can understand when you're a bored rich kid, on the fantasy message board or whatever when you're 16. But seriously now, for however you think the job that he's doing, he's running this giant wrestling company while he allegedly has responsibilities with football team and these other companies, and he's the booker by himself, and he's at every show, as we know, and blah, blah, blah. And he's got time to have multiple Twitter accounts that he sits there and fucking, Jesus Christ. I don't have time for multiple Twitter accounts, and I don't have to impersonate anybody. I can say whatever I want, but it's just, he's got all this shit to do, and he's got time to, oh my God. He needs to sleep, and maybe the booking would be better. What do you think?
Again, I'm looking through his Twitter, and there's a lot of missives that he's put out. I don't even know if he's writing about himself or if it's a third person, because he's reposting. FYI, that guy came to our house again last night. I said, what do you want?
This is Nick posting,
This
right?
is Nick, yeah. I said, what do you want? He said he wanted to talk to you. I said, then why are you at my house? And he said, please tell him to talk to me. I said,
What is...
Again, I have no idea.
Too many pronouns, pal.
I said, I have nothing to do with any of this. That makes two of us, Nick. I said, I have nothing to do with any of this. I gave Nick your number already. He said, okay, thank you. He said, there's all kind of shit about Nick online. I said, that's terrible. I told him we're done. Please don't knock on my door again. If he comes back, I'm not going to speak to him. I didn't want to open the door when he knocked. In fact, I yelled through the door, go away. But, and there's a name or something redacted here, but blank opened the door, so we talked to him through the lock screen door. That's the update. What a crazy thing. Sheesh. When this is all over, maybe you can tell us what is going on.
Who is he talking to?
I don't even know if it's him talking to someone or someone talking to him or about him. It also says here he's one of the top 35 sports agents of 2025, and
That's what I'm saying.
Top 35 under 35 from a few years back.
He supposedly was with this big company for 17 years, and he's got all this publicity in Forbes or whatever, and he's just unhinged on Twitter.
Again, that's the way it comes across. Maybe he doesn't think it comes across that way. Maybe he thinks that I don't know what he thinks he's doing. If you're being harassed, and if someone's knocking on someone's door for whatever this is, go to the police and get off Twitter. That's my advice. Go to the cops, get off Twitter.
If you're being harassed and your locked screen door is being knocked upon, put down your phone and pick up your phone and call the fucking police.
And by the way, what's the NFL commissioner going to do? Now, Shad, your son can't come to meetings if he's going to shitpost. If he's going to use a burner and get caught, what are we all going to do with all of our burners?
This is a South Park episode. This is a fucking South Park episode. Can you see the PC principal is in the fucking school assembly? All right, if you're going to shitpost,
Shad, I'll take that draft
the billionaire come up.
I'll take that draft pick. You won't have it if Tony keeps this up. We put up with the neck brace. That's one thing. But posting the details of whatever this is, that's a whole nother thing. And now that it's been brought to our attention here in the middle of the night by this person.
Yeah, I got the tweet at 4:00 in the morning. I couldn't sleep. The NFL commissioner couldn't sleep the rest of the night because he was so upset at this horrible thing that was being done that we can't even understand, and we are in the wrestling business.
Now, Tony, I just happened to be going through my notifications, and I saw that you've been naughty. Anything you want to confess? Well, good luck. Nick and everyone else, we're not involved. I guess that's the key here.
I want to put out a plea, because like I did earlier in the show, we have a far-reaching audience. Anybody that can help give us information on things. If someone can concisely encapsulate in writing in the form of an email who Nick Piccolo is, what his beef is with this fucking account that he thinks is Tony Khan, and why, and who's been threatening who and knocking on who's. Somebody's knocking on your door. Somebody's giving you hell. Do me a favor, open the door and kick that motherfucker in the balls. Oh, yeah. Can somebody explain this to us? Email it to, what's the goddamn email that, Brian, that you'll actually see?
cornydrivethrough@gmail.com.
There we cornydrivethrough@gmail.com. And let us know.
I'm looking through some of this. Apparently, he got in the middle of all this. He got into a fight with Jelly Nutella online. A rite of passage, if there ever was one. And he released DMs that they had, which is never a good thing to do. And Jelly Nutella's basically telling him to get help.
Oh my God. So the fucking meth head from underneath the boardwalk is telling this guy to get help. What the fuck?
No, he comes across like a good guy here. He's like, basically get off the computer and get some help. Well, good luck to everyone involved. And
yes.
Good luck.
Maybe if everybody just had a business to fall back on, and possibly a partner to put their big arm around them, Brian, and just give them a helping hand. He ain't heavy. He's my business partner kind of thing. If somebody was on your side, so you wouldn't make a flipping fool of yourself, is what I'm saying to you. That's what people need more of in the world. Can you think of, I don't know, anybody we know that would be like that could help take these poor little downtrodden minion folks and bring them up into the big business world where they wouldn't have to just go out there and make fools of themselves?
No, I don't know anyone who could help these people.
Well, I do.
Oh,
our friends at Shopify.
That's right.
Yes. And now you wake up having so many names running through your head. Folks, if you ever had doubt in yourself, if you thought maybe I want to do this thing or that thing or make this thing or sell that other thing, but you thought, what if nobody Nobody buys it. What if nobody comes to the store? What if I make a fool of myself? What if nobody wants me? Nobody knows the trouble that you've gone through in your mind. But now, with the help of Shopify, you will be able to know that you are right in believing in yourself and launching your business, despite all the fears and the hesitations and the trepidations that people put in front of you, because Shopify, experienced as they are in this industry, was able to take your meager little concept or your cheap little fucking toy and turn it into a megalopolis making money hand over fist. A megalopolis. Like that. That's the sound of megalopolis is making money.
A
Brian, have you
megalopolis?
ever operated a big megalopolis making all kinds of money?
No, it sounds like he's on the move.
Well, he's here and there. Shopify is the commerce platform behind millions of businesses around the world. That's the dark, sinister force behind so many things that you've come in contact with. But Shopify is the one. If you bought Granny's donuts, well, Shopify was right there when all Granny had was a minor yeast infection. And Shopify will help you build a business. Just like they've done 10% of all the e-commerce in the United States.
Let's say Granny's okay. That's not, I don't know. It was such a weird example that you pulled out there. But of course, Jim,
yes,
you want your business to grow like a yeast infection, and you want it to be able to survive like a yeast infection with no antibiotics.
Spread like a virus all across the world.
You need the right partner. And we know the right partner for your business, Shopify.
That's what, yeah, there you go. Da-ding, cha-ching, there you go, folks. That's the cash register sound, because Shopify is going to help you every step of the way from conception to reality, and all of the 9 months in between where you're craving the fucking sardines and the Parsippany ice cream. So once again, ladies and gentlemen, accelerate your efficiency and efficacy by joining the team over at Shopify, and let them show you why they've got the best converting checkout on the planet, and that iconic purple shop pay button used by millions of businesses around the world. Why, as a matter of fact, it's known better around the world than Zsa Zsa Gabor. So it's time to turn those what ifs into reality. With Shopify, you can sign up for your $1 a month trial period today at shopify.com/JCE. That's how you get that $1 a month trial period. The fix is in. You know us. You don't have to qualify. Beforehand, you used to have to give your driver's license number and credit rating, etc. Now you just give the code JCE at shopify.com. Got some in my eye there. All righty. Anyway, I guess, Brian, should we talk about now the target of Nick Piccolo's ire? Our friends over at AEW, Tony Khan's Romper Room session, they had another television broadcast again. It reached right around 500,000 viewers, which is what they've been down to lately. Would you like to talk about some of it?
Well, I mean, there were some interesting moments. Got to see an injury in real time this week.
Oh, Jesus Christ.
It's been a little while since we saw that. We got to see some promo showcase, I guess we'll call it. A showcase of everyone being able to stand around and wait their turn and do their promo. Got to see someone's teeth fly out of their mouth almost. Just a typical week of Dynamite.
Well, actually, I thought they opened up. This is, I think I said January 28th for the AEW Dynamite. But they started out with the best Kenny Olivier match that has ever been held, in my opinion. And it still may be faint praise, but they come up on the air, they hit his music, immediately he's coming out. He's over with that crowd in Austin, Texas. I don't know what's the matter with people in Austin, but nevertheless, gets a nice response and comes out and beats Rocky Romero in 4 minutes with his finish. Boom. 1, 2, 3. Now, I'll get to the things I didn't like in a second, but overall, if you've got this guy who has been off for longer than he's been on over the last couple of years, and now he's supposed to be in the world title mix, and the last three people that have hospitalized him have gotten away with it, as we've talked about. So he should go out and beat somebody in 4 fucking minutes with his finish. They finally did what I've been asking them to do for fucking 5 years. So I can't bitch about that. And because that's the only Kenny match that I've ever seen that actually made a point and adhered to some kind of logic, I'm phrasing it the best. But it talked me out of why I should feel this way, Brian, if you can. Every move he makes in the ring gets heat with me. The finger pointing, the cheek puffing, the prancing, the skipping, the waving, the bug eyes, the blowing kisses, the unnatural movements, I don't know how to explain. He's the most obvious performer in wrestling. You can't take any of it seriously because he's always making these goddamn oddball fucking moves. Am I just seeing this on my own, or is this there?
Well, I think there's a certain high impact herky jerkiness to the Kenny Omega move set, I guess we could say. He, I mean, this is always the way he's worked. And
when he runs to hit the ropes to run back and do something else, if you put the fucking sound effect from the cartoons of it, when Fred was trying to take off and skedaddle, the skedaddle sound, it would work. Anyhow, that was that.
I was really pulling for Rocky Romero. I thought he had a chance here. Sort of really put him on the map.
This showed about Rocky Romero. It takes a good man to beat him, but it don't take him long. So then Tony Schiavone gets in the ring. We established Tony's older than me, right? Even with his hair coloring is new, but he's older than me. He's wearing a fluorescent yellow tie and fluorescent yellow tennis shoes to match. And again, I know somebody out there is going, Cornette was a real fashion plate. As a manager, I was loud, but as an announcer, what the fuck is this? And he's literally eligible for Medicare. And did you pay attention to what Tony said when he pitched to Kenny with this interview, the opening statement that Tony
I paid attention to all of them. He was like a fucking neon sign. I couldn't look away.
Okay, then I was going to try to jot down what he said, and it was as convoluted of a preamble of who's fighting who to see who the winner is to fight who and when that I've ever heard. If you went back and they'd copyright us and slam us down if we went back and replayed it, but it's 45 seconds of just gibberish by the time he got to the end of it. Because Kenny's fighting the guy that's fighting the guy that they're going to fight the guy over there in Australia, and the winner of that guy's going to. A court stenographer could not have kept track of this, so they can't pitch to him with anything coherent. But then at least he's brief. He was emoting breathlessly that he wants the world title and he'll fight anybody, friend or foe. And then here came Paige, and Schiavone slinks to the corner like he's a kid in a timeout, and just he's not even looking at him like he's paying attention. He's just like looking off into the crowd, or just like, is he on acid? What is happening?
That's what it is. He takes so long to say stuff, and then everything he says doesn't make sense, and then he just stands around when he doesn't just hand the mic and leave. He's like a drunk Reeser Bowden. Just takes forever, but Reeser, there was a calm charm to him. With Schiavone, it's just, there's like a fuck off attitude. Like
it's like, where am I and what is happening here? So Paige does the same promo as all. He's growly and wordy, and he's going to be the next champion. And then Swerve comes out. And Swerve says, well, you didn't beat me in the 4-way. Nobody's beat me, so I'm going to be the world champion against anybody And I've jotted down, at least they're being brief, and it makes sense. If you're wanting to split the crowd amongst your top baby faces, if you're willing to overlook that, then at least this makes sense that all these people want to fight for the chance to be the champion. But then Kenny says, "Hi." What did he say? I think there's a little heat. It's not scalding, but it's there. No, I detect a little tension, or whatever he said. To it, he and Swerve got pissy with each other, and Kenny's like, "I detect you might want to fight." Oh yeah. And then here came Don Phallus out to the stage. "I have something to say," and they boo him. And he says that old Andre is going to beat Swerve tonight and then is going to come for Kenny. And I've got something special for Hangman Adam Page because my family runs the show. And then Brian helped me. Some music started playing, but it wasn't Don's like wow music. It was like somebody's music, like that was going to come out. Because he said, "I got something for Paige," but did we find out what he had for Paige? Because the music that I didn't recognize started playing, and all the baby faces were standing in the ring staring at him. And then Kenny said, "Well, cut the music." Whose music was it?
I think it may have been Omega's music again. Like they're playing him off. They're going back to the guy who won the match, I think.
Oh, okay. Maybe. Well, he said, "Cut the music." And he said, "Don, you said what's going to happen to all of us, but you should have worried about yourself." And then my Aunt Lola could have got out of the ring and run down the aisle a little bit quicker than Kenny did, but he jumped down and like Callus was 50 feet away, and he just turned and ran in the entrance, and Kenny ran after him. And that was it. I don't know.
What was it? Was it this promo where Don Callis's dentures fell out? Did you see that?
No, I didn't even see that part. What happened here?
Oh, let me find the video. Don Callis's teeth fell out. Go on. I'll be right back. Let me find this.
Well, all right. Well, we'll try not to miss you. But, and anyway, at that point, I'm just thinking, again, MJF is a heel champion. And you want all your top baby faces chasing him. But you, for some reason, every other booker in the history of wrestling, from Dusty Rhodes on down, had a lot of his baby faces chasing his heel champion without having the baby faces get ahead at the expense of each other and fight each other. And for the longest time, Tony and AEW was in a situation where all their guys that meant anything really were heels, and the baby faces were just weak and ineffective and blah. And now it seems like he's neutered all of his heels, and he doesn't have anybody but baby faces to get his other top baby faces over. So it'd be wonderful if it was a variety of baby faces beating other secondary and semifinal and almost top heels in order to jockey for position. And maybe you have the one babyface match where these two guys just have to settle something, and then it would stand out because it was different. But now these guys are just trying to cut each other's nuts off every fucking day. Having said that, did you find Don's teeth?
Yeah, I sent check your email, see if you could play this video that I just sent, and you'll see. But yeah, Omega ended it with one of his classic awful promos. And of course, Swerve, give him credit. After I made fun of his gibberish promos last week, he actually was short, concise, and to the point this time.
That was the best part about all of this, is everybody was short. But okay, I'm going to click on this thing here now. And I'm clicking on another thing. And yeah. Oh, wait, what? Oh my God. Okay.
It looks like you're watching the replay, I guess.
When he came out, it's not a denture. I must be, because I have a little pre-dentistry background as well as my pre-law and pre-med, Brian. I don't know if you know this or not, but it's a partial plate. The dentures is all the teeth. When he came out to the stage and he said, I don't know if you know this, but the Don Callus family runs the show. That's when he opened his mouth, the Don or Callus or whatever, and the partial plate with like teeth on both sides came out, and he stuck his hand back up there in his tongue too, and I think he stuck it back up in there, but it almost fell out of his fucking mouth. Oh, crap. This show was snake bit. What more could fucking happen?
That's why I was surprised when you didn't reference it, because that was the funniest thing. Here comes the heel to confront the three baby faces having their talk, and his teeth fall out.
Well, if you weren't looking and I wasn't studying his dental procedures, you might have missed it, but for just a second, but oh, crap. Well, but that was the opening segment. And then through the show, basically everybody wants to get a position for a title match with MJF and blah, blah, blah. And they're saying Samoa Joe is not medically cleared with a non-contact injury. Does that mean someone wished him ill?
It's all mental.
What is a non-contact injury?
Yes. I don't know.
And
that's his new gimmick, psychosomatic Samoa Joe.
Psycho. No, they've already got the Psycho Killer. So they could bring Joe back as a Psycho Killer and Psychosomatic. All right, moving on. We can't spend too much time on this. We've got anything else to do. Dick the Boozer versus Ace Austin was the next match. And that took about 10 minutes, and Boozer hit him with the double arm DDT, 1, 2, 3. So now, 5 years into this run, they're kind of sort of having top guys go out and win matches to get over. But then here came, go ahead.
Well, again, the philosophy of Tony Khan is get guys on TV, have them lose the top guys. It makes them bigger. And last week we saw those two guys against FTR have a nice long competitive match before they lost. Ace Austin. Dennis had like a stooge named Ace Austin, didn't he? I don't know. It was Ace something, but I thought that was his name.
No, Dennis is, no. I can't remember, but that wasn't.
There was some guy, I forget his name now, but anyway, Ace Austin had a long competitive match with the best booked guy in AEW over the last few years, you could say, in terms of who wins the most and is taken care of the most. In Tony's eyes, that's making people. Speedball and Kevin Knight debuted by getting their ass kicked and losing to someone, right?
But at the same point, Moxley just laughed off a lot of his offense, which was somewhat cringy at some points. But, I mean, again, Moxley is going to do what Moxley does. And you can also tell when he's worried about hurting somebody, he does that double arm DDT a whole different way, doesn't he? And then when he's going to get over and doesn't give a shit. It has many, many purposes. But the point, here's what I was going to say. Whether Ace Austin, whatever, he's got a ace up his sleeve. That's his entrance. We now know that he is a job guy because he debuted and got beat. So it doesn't matter what they do with him. But the point is, Moxley now is a babyface against, and the Death Riders are with him. They're helping him out. They're all together. They're a group against the Callus family, correct? That's what they're trying to build here.
Yes. It's established again later in the show. Yeah.
Okay. But at the same point, the Death Riders were the heel team that we never got any explanation for all of that and what Moxley was trying to do. And they were trying to pour bleach down everybody and blah, blah, blah. But now he has started cutting rah-rah promos. So suddenly they're baby faces. So the heels are members of the Callus family, but there's 18 of those. So the point is, when Moxley wins this match, then here comes Take a Shit walking out to the ring with fucking purpose. And he gets in the ring and they go face to face, him and Moxley, and there's a lot of finger pointing. And I don't know why, but I noticed that Okada does this also, and a lot of the Japanese guys do it. When they'll be finger point, they won't be moving their lips. They become mute. They're not saying anything. Have you noticed this?
Oh yeah, I mean that was the big thing that stood out about the Okada Takeshita program leading up to their match.
Yeah, because they were both doing it. Yeah, they both do it.
They'd walk up to each other, and it was almost like Harpo Marx and in the mirror. Just
yes, and Lucy. There you go. But so the point is, Take and Moxley face to face, lots of finger pointing, gesticulating going on, and then Take just backs out and gets out of the ring and leaves, and Mark Davis and I started to say Johnny Doyle, Jake Doyle jump in from behind and just hit Moxley with a couple big moves and lay him out, and then they leave. So then Moxley again was the guy who didn't sell anything and didn't get beat for ages, and suddenly these two guys just drop him and he doesn't get up. He doesn't go on a rampage. The other guys don't come out. They just leave it. And who exactly in the family, which of the 13 members of the family are they going to be fighting? And what? This is all over the place, is what I'm trying to say to you.
Yes,
Can you disagree with that?
I do not disagree in any way.
Would you like to move on to the TNT Championship contest, Brian?
I think that would be the thing to do.
Mark Briscoe versus El Clown. So now they've got, and maybe I might be wrong, but is it hologram or holograph?
Hologram, not holograph.
All right, well then tell Sockface, Excalibur, because at the start of this, old El Clown has apparently injured Holograph. Did you hear him say that?
I did not even notice that, no.
And I was thinking, Holograph, I don't want you, Holograph. But so that's how they set this. El Clown is injured Holograph, who's a member of the conglomeration. So they're Mark Briscoe, the TNT champion, blah, blah, blah. Mark always gets over with the live crowd. And this other guy is, I guess he's Tony's backup gimmick luchador, no basics, a gymnast. At least it's not spitball, but this match, he got a lot of heat for what actually looked like, and I don't blame him, he no-sold and popped up from a J driller. But in actuality, they were trying to tell the story that as Briscoe gave it to him, that he posted up and flipped out and didn't take it. But the announcers didn't know what the fuck, and they didn't get that across. And to most people, because it did look like that he just popped up and no-sold a J driller. But that was not only Jay's finish, but Mark's finish, and he wins the big matches with it, and the people react to it. Whether this guy can nip up from a fucking attempted J driller or not, don't prostitute the move for this underneath clown that won't never sell a goddamn ticket, is the fucking point that should have been made by any producer of this match. So then El Clown botched some fake flippy shit that Mark had to sell, and then hit a couple of big moves, and then Briscoe beat him with a schoolboy. 12 minutes. They keep trying to get these little fucking pipsqueak cheerleaders over because they can do all this shit that Tony's hyperactive mind finds entertaining. And it just gets in the way of trying to get the talent over. I'm sorry, Brian, your thoughts?
I actually thought this was the best match on the program. I kind of liked it. El Clone does some interesting things that it looks like he's about to fall or botch, and he doesn't. And that's his whole thing. Because I guess he goes in reverse. I don't know what his thing is, but I enjoyed this, actually. I actually like this match.
Well,
what match was better on this show?
What match was better than what? Than this
match on this episode of Dynamite? What match was better?
Let's see here. Hold on here. I'm looking at my goddamn notes here. That came to a bad end. All right. They were the nicest guys in prison on this night. How's that?
Well, on this night.
So anyway,
on this night, there was a new member of the prison gang.
But nevertheless, Briscoe did the promo. Actually, he started to do a promo, and the lights went out, and the lights came back on, and music, and it was Tomaso Champa, who have been making the news on the news sites lately because his contract was expiring, and they were wondering what he was going to do or if he was going to do anything or blah, blah, blah. He got a nice pop and reaction from these people. Because again, if it's an AEW crowd, they're going to know more about who other people are than just your average wrestling crowd. So Ciampa got in the ring and they circled each other and they faced off, and he made motions that he's coming for the TNT title, and then he kissed Mark Briscoe on the cheek and left the ring. And it's not as erotic as it sounds. It's like the Tomaso Champa, the kiss of death. I mean, this goes back to stuff he wanted to do and did do in Ring of Honor 15 years ago. Because Tomaso, and I've said this every time that we've talked about him for the past 3 or 4 or 5 years or whatever on the WWE programs, I love his work. I think he's a realistic personality. You can believe his shit. He's a beast of an athlete. He trains like a demon. His work is solid and gets over, and he can be serious if you let him. And they were never going to, with his age, with his injury background, with just the competition over there in general, they were never going to let him be what a top guy or what he could be. As is illustrated by the fact that he and Gargano were partners, and they've used Gargano better than him after they split. So he's perfect for AEW because he's only going to have to work once or twice a week, if that. He's still going to stay in great shape because he's motivated to do that. And all of the stuff I've seen him do or want to do has been fairly fucking serious, except for, again, you don't know, when he was in that thing with Gargano and his wife and the girl and the whole nine, that was all nonsense. But just work-wise, Psycho Killer Ciampa, I'm interested in seeing what he might do. However, then the realism sets in. He's still in a land of silly booking and children, but because he's different, he'll stand out here, and at least we won't have to watch somebody else that just sucks in every way. But I think he'll get a lot better chance to show what he can do, have some fun, and make some money. Tony got a little victory here, so he's probably paying him well. So he'll mean more here, and he'll get a chance to do more of his shit here than he would have over there. And it doesn't affect anybody's business either way. It's not going to negatively affect the WWE. And as we've seen before, no matter who comes in to AEW, even people much higher in the pecking order than Tomaso, it's not going to be any kind of a change in the positive direction. But except for programming, match quality, maybe, whatever, a true professional, but it's not going to be any difference in business.
With that said, I think it's the right move for him. I think he's a good pickup for AEW. Him and Mark Briscoe, sign me up to see that.
Yeah.
Before they beat him.
I'm looking forward to that. If at least they'd start out with a regular fucking match and work their way up from there instead of doing everything in the first 15 minutes, but yes, I would like to see that.
And another thing, because of the difference in roster size and actual physical size between WWE and AEW, as soon as he came out there and when he got in the ring, he looks bigger because he's not in the land of giants anymore. So
Yes.
I actually thought he looked better on AEW TV than he has on WWE TV, even though he's in great shape.
Yeah, Tomaso's in great shape, and he looks like he'd fucking beat your ass, but he's really looked small in the WWE environment because of the size of everybody else. And this way, he gets to pick on some people and be a big bully.
And he's the kind of
So
guy
I'm in
that,
favor of that.
unless Tony just starts beating him, he gives you a lot of fresh. I mean, either way, Tony will do it, but gives you fresh matchups. Him and Kenny Omega, him and MJF, him and Adam Page, him and Moxley. Man, I like all those people, but at least it's something fresh. So don't blow it. With Tomaso, I guess is my point.
But then we come to the 9 o'clock hour, Brian. It's time for the MJF in-ring promo. And did you detect the difference between the roar, not only when Tomaso came out, but when Kenny came out? And they knew he was there. Tomaso was a surprise, but they got big roars. And MJF came down. They didn't react like they used to. I'm thinking they know what they're about to see. MJF is going to come out and do a wonderful soliloquy, tearing everybody down. But it's the same. Somebody's probably going to interrupt him. But did you detect the people? Was it just Austin? Or was it just because they were right after Ciampa's big entrance? Or was it like, I mean, they react when he says shit, but I'm afraid that they have just taken all the fucking bloom off his rose.
Well, also, he's not right now interacting with a top star. And that's not to take anything away from Brody King, but that's just not who he is right now, the way he's been presented.
But they used to roar just when he came out. Whether they were chanting for him or against him, there was a lot more engagement.
I don't know.
Whether he's our scumbag or fuck you or whatever. Anyway, immediately he started to knock the town. He started speaking for about 10 seconds. And here came Brody King. And he got in the ring. MJF has to back off. And, are we going to be professional here? In other words, are you going to stand there and just smirk at me while I fucking tear you down verbally for the next 5 minutes? Because that's what happened.
That's exactly what happened, yeah.
He cuts a scathing, just obnoxious promo on Brody King, and Brody King stood in the corner laughing while he was, MJF was offering to hire him as a stooge. And if I talk about how good MJF is, then I get all these people who will fire back on Twitter or whatever. Oh my God, Cornette will take up for MJF no matter what he does. He won't say anything bad about his boy. When I talk about how great MJF is and how rotten he's being used and how bad this position is, they don't get that point. MJF is a one of a kind verbal talent, and also is good enough at in-ring wrestling athletically to have the best match on the card, because mentally and psychologically putting a match together, he's in the upper percentile also. But that means almost nothing unless there is an environment and a roster and a producer or group of producers that you could put him in the middle of to take advantage of all that. Elsewise, you get what you've got here is he's doing the same shit he's been doing for 5 or 6 years to diminishing returns against less interesting people.
What'd you think of Brody King on the mic here? MJF was channeling Rickles. What'd you think of Brody King?
Well, I think He sounds more like Howard Brody than Bruiser Brody. He sounds like he got a little bass in his voice at the end, but I mean, for it to have to just stand there and smirk and then just say, well, I got with Tony Khan, and next week I'm going to face you in an eliminator match, and if I beat you, then I'll get a title shot in Australia. So we're going to see the match before we are asked to pay to see the rematch. And
by the way, how does that work? How does that? MJF was telling him, I don't want to wrestle you. Last week he said, until you beat someone. You haven't beaten anyone yet. So now his solution is, I'm going to beat you so I get a chance to beat you.
Yeah, that's what Tony agreed with, too, and that makes perfect sense. I'm going to beat you to get a chance to beat you. But then he's not, unless they're completely insane, he's not going to beat MJF on television, because if they have a pay-per-view match, nobody's going to goddamn buy that he's going to win the belt from him anyway. MJF needs some wins in much the same way as Kenny needs wins. So I would imagine that MJF will somehow cheat and lie and steal to prevail in this thing, and then get backed into a corner with someone, whether it be Brody King or anybody else, at the pay-per-view. The pay-per-view is Australia, right? That's what they're talking about, the Grand Slam in Australia.
I don't think it's a pay-per-view. I just think it's a Dynamite.
Oh, good heavens. Well, in that case, or even less reason to fucking have Brody King go over. So, but I still say...
They mentioned Buddy, though.
What I said...
They mentioned Buddy in this promo. Maybe Buddy will come back in Australia. That's where he got hurt last year.
Well, but one way or another, it'll be the best Brody King match that we've seen, because it'll be MJF calling it, and MJF will have an actual guy whose English is his first language that he can call shit with. So it'll be better than MJF and fucking Bandito.
They can make it a tag match. Brodito versus MJF and that giant guy who got in the ring at CMLL in Arena, Mexico, and just stood there during the Bandito match.
Yeah, but put the Abraham Lincoln outfit on him and see how that
It's got the height.
works.
That's right.
You know, Brian, I think I've got the answer to how this segment could have come off a little bit better, how Brody King wouldn't have been just standing in the corner and just having to listen to being eviscerated and browbeaten by MJF and just have to smirk at the whole thing. What if Brody King in the corner was listening to his Raycon earbuds? Then he'd have reason to smile, and he could be bopping in the corner, listening to all his favorite tunes, or maybe checking up on the news. And he wouldn't have to just stand there and be emasculated by MJF's verbal wizardry. Maybe a little KC and a Sunshine Band in his ears. What do you think?
Perhaps that's what he was doing, and that's why he wasn't bothered by MJF. He was sitting there listening to something from Sacred Bones Records or something from one of his favorite labels, and not worrying about the man cutting him down roast style in front of him.
Well, maybe he didn't have the right kind of Raycon earbuds in his ears, Brian, because he didn't have the essential open earbuds. And that way he could have heard his music, and he could have kept an ear on MJF, because with the essential open earbuds, they don't block everything, like the cars honking and the people screaming, "Get out of the way, the safe is falling." So you need to hear things like that. And so the safe.
Has that happened any time since like a 1940s cartoon? I haven't heard any safes falling on anyone's head.
It happened 6 times in the 1960s, I'll have you know. They called it the Great Safe Epidemic. You didn't remember that?
In the 60s? No, I didn't learn about that.
They traced it to bad cable manufacturers in the safe lifting trade. But anyway, if you want to hear whether that safe is plummeting toward your head or not, you get the essential open earbuds, folks, and that way the open ear design lets you hear the music and the world around you both at the same time. The multi-angular hook goes around the ear, and for the people, the segment of the community that have the lobes on the other side of their ear, you can turn it right around. It just it's a flexible ear hook that adapts to any ear in any direction. And If you've got regular ears, but you put them both on backwards, you can hear the Beatles' White Album backwards so you know who buried Paul. And there's 36 hours of battery life. So you've got that going for you. Folks, I'm telling you, whether you want to listen to whether Paul is dead or just run errands and go to the gym and not have to hear about the everyday life, you can just listen to what you want to listen to while still being able to hear the train crossing the tracks you're sitting on. The Essential Open Earbuds are here to help you go for the gold all the way. Go to Buy Raycon. That's BUYRAYCON, buyraycon.com/JCE Open. JCE Open. You're going to get 15% off everything on the whole daggum site there. Essential Open Earbuds, buyraycon.com/JCE Open. 15% off. Don't be flattened by falling safe.
Again, we love them over here. I got my pair. The kids have stolen my other pairs of Raycon earbuds. Great deal for you. Buy
and
Raycon.
The thing is, Mick Foley, in effect, is getting 30% off because when he uses our code, he only has one ear. He gets a pair. It lasts him double time.
Well, he still has an ear hole. He just doesn't have a ear lobe.
Well, but he ain't got an ear to hook the rotating angular hook around.
Why don't we not talk about the people who can't use the fine product? Why don't we talk about the audience?
Well, duct tape, I guess, would work. You know, just a duct tape. That's why he used to bandage himself up so much. He was holding his earbuds in after he lost his ear.
Once again, buyraycon.com/JCE.
We recommend that. Well, back to Dynamite. Talking about blowing your ears off. Okay. Again, I'm cursed, apparently, also. FTR was going to have a match with Mark Davis and Jake Doyle. And even though, again, they're all heel teams here, so the people weren't really going to be just on the edge of their seats on this because they're all heels, so why do they care? But I thought, okay, Davis, I give him shit because he's got a big ass, but I think he's actually trying to lose some. And he can move, and he's got that great pile driver, and at least he's a full-grown man. And Doyle looks enough like him that they're a pretty good tag team.
Yeah.
Doyle's ass is smaller, but he's still a big guy, and he does some good-looking shit.
They looked like a team when they came out. It looked good. Yes. I was like, you know what? I see it. Yeah.
I see it. And I'm thinking, okay, they're going to have a good match with FTR. The question is FTR going to go too far and lose everybody, or are they going to have a really good tag match? But let's see what Davis and Doyle got going. And they started this thing out, and I liked it. The chops were solid. The shoulder tackles were solid. Cash did a dive on both the heels on the floor, and they caught him and threw him like a lawn dart onto Cash, and that was the break spot. And Davis and Dax spent time wailing on each other. I mean, the chops, Dax's chest was bleeding, and it looked like somebody dinged him in the eye. And so this was a smash mouth offense, as JR used to say, right? And I'm like, okay, I said, these guys as a tag team, now that the Hurt Syndicate, I guess, is goddamn a single, you've got something. They worked well. They hard-weighed Doyle somehow when he had some minor blood from his head. And then Doyle was trying to superplex Dax, and Cash pulled Doyle down onto the apron and gave him a DDT on the apron. And I'm trying to describe this so people can visualize it if they haven't seen it, but imagine that Doyle was standing on the apron of the ring with his right hand on the top rope, facing Cash, and Cash overhooked his head and dropped Doyle straight down to the apron with a DDT, and Doyle never let go of the top rope with his right hand. And when Cash came down, it jerked him at an angle that it hyperextended his arm and tore his bicep. And this is not just an amateur diagnosis, because he immediately afterwards said, I've just torn my fucking bicep. And he rolled off on the floor, and that was the last we saw of him. And they continued the match, even though it kind of, they hit the next move they were going to do, and then it came to a halt because nobody knew what to do because the guy's out on the floor. So Dax called some kind of audible. Cash took a bump to the floor, and Dax and Davis kept the match going so that they could send Moxley and his group down to ringside. And again, these finishes. Davis ends up on the floor, and the referee gets distracted, and Moxley hits Davis over the head with the title belt and rolls him back in or whatever, and FTR hit the shatter machine on him, 1, 2, 3. So it took 6 guys to beat one, and Moxley's group is supposed to be the baby faces, and they're the ones that was 6-on-1 against the fucking one heel. Help me.
Jake Doyle just showed up. He looked really good. Looked like a full-grown wrestler. He's out. He's right away, he's out.
And he's gone.
That's unfortunate. Stokely was a comedy figure in this whole situation.
Oh, did you see they forgot to go wheel Stokely? Stokely was trying his best he could in that wheelchair. On those pads, you can't move that fucking thing. He'd had to have arms like Lesnar. And he's trying to get over there, and then Cash sees him and goes over and starts wheeling him. The fucking... But yeah, again, Doyle, if he doesn't have surgery on a torn bicep, it's 3 or 4 months. If he does have surgery, it's probably 6 months or maybe a little more. He just got it.
And no one knew how to react. I mean, they got a little reaction when Moxley showed up. But, you know, there were points in the match where the fans didn't know, because they aren't like going to cheer for anyone for any reason. And they're not giving them any reason to cheer for anyone. So they're just sitting there watching the match. And then it fell apart.
And
the Callus family's been in like every segment on this show.
I was about to say, the 2 heels, Doyle and Davis, attacked Moxley earlier in the night, 2-on-1. So now Moxley, the babyface group, waits until one of the heels is injured, and there's 2 more baby faces on the other heel, and then he comes out and makes it 6-on-1 and fucks the fucking heel so that the other heel team, the baby faces, fucked a heel so the other heel team could win the match.
What is their problem? The Death Riders and the Callus family. Like, what is the root of the problem?
I don't really know. Not sure.
It's got from 0 to 100 pretty quick. I'm not sure what the problem is. Other than the MJF
bleach hadn't
segment.
come out yet. The bleach has not come out yet.
Other than the MJF segment, the Callus family has been involved in every single segment on this show.
Yes. Well, because it's hard because everybody in the company's in the Callus family. And then we were ready for the main event. And I wasn't, because Swerve versus Andrade. So basically, Callus had told Swerve that Andrade was going to beat him so that he would go on in this march to the title and just fuck y'all, right? So they have the match. It's an 8-minute match in the show, and then they go 5 minutes in the overtime. Did you see the one spot? I'm like, Jesus H. Christ. They get out on the floor. They get up on the barricade that's like 6 inches wide, and they're standing gingerly on the barricade, balancing each other so that Andrade can backdrop Swerve on the barricade. So it's both fake in that they're setting it up, obviously cooperating to set it up on purpose with each other. And then when the guy takes the bump, there's no way to control everybody. He could have just as well. Remember what Alexander and Ibushi did? If there'd have been people underneath them, they would have fallen on them, right? He took that backdrop. There's a kid in the front row that this guy has put his hand in front of, his arm in front of, like, oh, wait a minute. A foot an ass, a knee, something lands on the people in the front row, and there's a multi-million-dollar lawsuit, all to do a screwy move that there's a high potential you might get hurt, and it looks fake to set it up. Why are they doing these things, Brian?
I don't know. Again, it comes on the heels of, we just saw, what was it, Cody Rhodes, right? Do a bump on the barricade with Drew McIntyre the other day.
And also there was footage of Fatu got flung over on a crew person and apologized in mid bump. Oh, I'm so sorry I hit you.
Oh no, I did not see that. Really?
Yeah, yeah.
He pulled a Lyra?
Yes. They're like, oh, I'm sorry. He was still laying there, but you can see him mouthing, I'm so sorry. But anyway, the finish of this thing, Andrade hit Swerve with two big moves that looked like it killed him and got a 2 count, and then hit another big DDT move. It looked like it killed him, got a 2 count. And after Swerve has had these 3 things done to him in a row, he immediately got a jackknife for a 2 count. And then Andrade got a roll up for a 2 count. And then Swerve jumped up and did his kick to the head finish, but didn't cover him, pulled him right up. But as he was pulling him up, Andrade grabbed Aubrey and she pulled away in a stagey fashion to turn her back so that Andre could kick Swerve in the balls and then hit his finish 1, 2, 3. And I'm like, what the fuck? So Andrade hit this guy with 3 things that should have left him stunned, if nothing else, and couldn't beat him. Then they did a couple of roll-ups, and Swerve did his kick to the head finish on the guy. And 5 seconds later, the guy just spins around and kicks him in the balls and hits his finish like there's nothing wrong. So Swerve's head kick didn't stun him enough that he couldn't do that 10 seconds later. The end.
And now Andrade gets a shot next week at, he gets Kenny Omega, and then the winner of that gets something else?
And then the loser, which is all of us, gets to watch it.
Well, another exciting AEW Dynamite. Just remember, better than TNA. Whenever you get too down on yourself for watching this show, better than TNA, but that was Dynamite. Well,
funny you might mention them, because we're going to take a little visit to TNA land here in a second from 20 years ago. We're going to hop in the Wayback Machine. I've found some things. But before we do that, Brian, I got a big stack of paperwork here. But what is on the big stack of events for this week in the Arcadian Vanguard Network?
Another action-packed week on the Arcadian Vanguard Podcast Network. I'm so excited I can barely talk. On Twitter at Superpodcast or on Facebook at facebook.com/Arcadian Vanguard. Listen to the wrestling news each and every morning, wherever you find your favorite podcasts, or directly from thewrestlingnews.com. Look for the wrestling news. No clickbait, no paywall. Just the wrestling news. Shut Up and Wrestle with Brian Solomon, SUAWpod.com. Stick to Wrestling with John McAdam, McAdamPod.com. And of course, the 605 Super Podcast, The Mothership! Go through the archive. That sounded hard. Go through the archive, 605pod.com, wherever you find your favorite podcasts.
Well, I told you I was on medication, and part of the side effects is also a little flatulence. Well, before we get into, as I said, the history lesson, we've got a breaking news story that is happening. It's coming out now as we're sitting here talking. We're going to try to bring this to you in a timely fashion as best we can. But Roman Reigns has been making some comments here today in the media, and it don't look like he's in favor of the current booking. Is the first blush that I'm getting from this. But do you have some details, Brian, over there in the newsroom?
Yeah, it's coming in. Like you said, a lot of people started emailing us. It's trending on Twitter right now. Apparently, Roman Reigns was on the Pat McAfee show, which traditionally is a safe landing spot for WWE executives or talent, because McAfee's not going to ask you anything you don't want to be asked. And
he's not going to make you show your tax returns.
Right. It's a friendly spot to go do an interview, and Roman Reigns is there because he's promoting, I presume, the Royal Rumble. And let's go to this audio now because, yeah, it's everywhere. But let's go to this. We'll stop it along the way.
I mean, there's always a mindset of that, but to be completely honest and transparent here, 2 years ago, it all changed around. And what I've been doing out there hasn't exactly been the same of what I've done before. And the way I look at it is I'm a generous tribal chief. I give the people plenty of time. These young talent, they say we hog all the TV time. They'll complain about one thing, and then I leave an opening. I give them plenty of space to create, whatever type of superstardom they want. Get over, kids. Yeah. Get over. You know what I mean? And we're 2 years here now. And we haven't advanced. We haven't evolved. You know what I mean? We have great leadership. And Nick Cotton, God bless him. What a businessman. He's a genius. But we have to be able to keep up with that creatively. And that's why people like me, people who are striving to be the very best, the greatest, the GOATs, the MJs, I just can't sit around and see mediocrity. Not when I set it up for everybody to just slam it home. I mean, we're on.
Let me stop it for a second.
Mediocrity.
Mediocrity.
But I like it not when I just set it up for everybody to slam it home. So there's an element of, well, I'm the greatest thing that's ever been to this, but there's also an underlying current of the one thing you can't say is that Roman Reigns hogs the TV time and won't let anybody else get on because what does he work 6 times a fucking year? I mean, it's not like he's an ever present.
Maybe there's a reason.
Yeah, well, exactly. But so you can't say that he's one of the guys that won't get out of the way. But when he says new guys, go get over. Well, they can only get over in a lot of cases if it depends on if they're put in a position and a light to get over. And which comes into creatives. But that's the thing that, when he says, well, creatively, we're just not keeping up. And it was better 2 years ago when I was on top. There's an element of all the top guys are always going to say that. But there's also, he's striking close to the nerve.
That's the thing. It's not just the guy being braggadocious about.
Yeah.
His time on top. What he's saying is reflecting what a lot of fans, what I've said, what you've said about trying to watch these shows and the creative pace, the pacing. Nothing happens at times. And
yes,
man, if he's saying it, if he's saying it, who else is saying it?
Well, and that's the thing is, I think he thinks he can get away with saying it. And he might not be he might be at a point where he's prickly with Triple H over, because I'm assuming that the plans that they had for him have been changed around. I heard with the recent injuries and the title changes and that they decided to put the thing on Drew. What's Roman doing right now?
Yeah, who do you see him wrestling at WrestleMania right now?
That's why I said The Rock better show up and they better have that match if they're ever going to, because elsewise Roman Reigns doesn't really have anything major going on at WrestleMania.
Well, there's some more audio. Let's go back to this. The Pat McAfee show, speaking with Roman Reigns.
Netflix, for crying out loud. You gotta capitalize. We got people over here playing around trying to figure it out. And I got the formula. I know how to cook it up. You know what I mean? So it's been a tough couple of years for me. But at the same time, when you come off such a hell of a run, you got to kind of just pump the brakes for a second. I got 5 children at home. I wear, we all wear those 2 important hats, being a husband and a father. You got to be able to, click. And I've been on the road for a long time. So I needed to be able to pull back a little bit. But I'm fully capable. I'm only 40 years old. With all the tech and all the information we have now, I feel like I'm 25 years old. So I'm still good to go. You know what I mean?
Well, there it is.
Well, I'm glad modern medical science is in his corner.
It's nice to say, I've done all this. I've been on the road for a long time. So now I could stay home and just be a dad because that comes first. Because, yeah, it does. But Most people don't have that luxury. But it sounds like he's saying, you haven't seen me as much because I don't like the creative.
Yeah.
I've been home with my family because there's no reason for me to come back. So there's an element, obviously, it's a friendly show. There's an element of him not breaking kayfabe. But then, again, why? If you're not breaking kayfabe and you're just, I'm the best, I've done this and that, we have creative problems. Like, why would you say that?
And then, but I've got the recipe. So if you want to cook it back up, just come to me.
Wow.
We shall see. But in the meantime,
Do you think Dwayne Johnson and Brian Gewirtz sent him a bottle of champagne after they saw this clip? They sent him roses.
Well, could this be the start of Roman and/or The Rock politicking to get something going? The Rock doesn't really have to politic, but a little groundswell of interest, perhaps, and who knows? But they're paying The Rock all those tens of millions of dollars a year. What have you done for us in the last year besides come in for the second year and screw up our booking, and then we haven't seen you since?
And beyond that, and again, it is a disruption. But the question, and again, Roman Reigns is saying it, it's not just fans. We just had Triple H on the show, the clip of him saying, be a fan, don't be a critic.
Yeah.
Because that's what you do. When you go see a movie and you feel like this movie sucks, you don't come out and go, I feel like I should get my money back. You go, well, I didn't like it, but it was a movie. Like, that's just such a stupid way to look at it. And here's Roman Reigns. He's not just some fan. Here's Roman Reigns in the middle of a friendly interview with a friendly WWE friend in Pat McAfee saying that, again, the exact quote, we haven't advanced, we haven't evolved, we have great leadership, Nick Khan, God bless him, but we have to keep up creatively.
Keep up creatively. And again, I think that's how he really feels. That's maybe how some other people feel that can't say that. And that's also probably designed to, I don't like my WrestleMania creative, and I think we could do better. I think he's serving all those masters.
I think it's that, and also 2 years. So what he's really talking about is, it's not as good for me as it was under Vince McMahon.
Yeah,
and
from the height of the bloodline when I was the star until now, it's truthfully, from the height of the bloodline, it's not as good now as it was then. And from the time he was a star till now, it's not as good for him as it was then.
And if you look at everything since he lost the belt, they set him up for a little thing with Solo when he eventually came back. They did that, and he's been around the other main event guys. He's been there for the War Games or whatever. And then he disappears again. So who knows what the hell's going on?
Well, the thing also is, he's got to the point where he can get the part-time contract and all that stuff. And I think we talked about this one time before. When he was the big dog of the group and had the wise man and all the top baby faces were jockeying, try to get in and take him out, and they had the group thing going on, but he was the focus and center of attention, and the whole heel tribal chief thing just worked and clicked for him. But when he comes out as a babyface, the music is too slow. The walking to the same thing, it doesn't create the same babyface fire and emotion and passion. And again, just as he's a babyface that still has issues with the other babyface the other babyface because he was a heel for so long, he made enemies of these people. Well, you can't just erase that overnight. That would be phony. But by the same token, then he's not a heel because the people cheer him, and he's a babyface because he's over as a star, but he can't do most of the things or be in the position that got him over. And he's kind of an island unto himself, no pun intended. And he's needed to do something new and different as a babyface and as a single and as a lone wolf than try to still be Roman Reigns without all of that trapping around him. Does that make any sense?
It makes sense. I don't know if it's, I don't know how
Possible?
likely, I don't know how likely it is. I mean, I hate to say it because Heyman is fine with the vision. It works. But Roman Reigns lost something not having Heyman there. I know it's kind of a minor thing. It's a manager who just walks out there with you and doesn't really do anything during the match, but it was the package. And like you said, I don't know how you recapture that feeling. It was a feeling. Remember when they would come out, they would take 10 minutes to get to the ring, but it was working. And then finally it was like, yeah, this is taking a while. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But I don't know what you do with him. And he's best as a heel. That's the other thing. He is best as a heel.
Yeah. I don't know. I don't know whether, his future is for the big game or the toilet bowl. I don't know where his future is. He doesn't have the Ula Fala, which, as you know, was kind of like the crown of the whole bloodline, Brian. And when the crown is yours, you're farting through silk. But when they take the crown away, well, you're just a local yokel at the local Kmart just parking carts. The crown means everything, Brian.
This is a hell of a setup. Yes, it does, Jim.
Yes.
We all want that crown.
We want that crown. Well, at DraftKings, they'll give you a goddamn crown. How about that? That crown will be yours. And you can do whatever you want with it. Folks, Super Bowl 60 deserves a sports book built for the moment. And the DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of Super Bowl 60, puts you right in the middle of the biggest game of the year. So watch your ass, because those fucking guys are big and they're running fast. If you're in the middle of it, you're going to get trampled.
The metaphorical middle.
The metaphorical middle. It's 5 yards off because they're on the metric system. Brian, anything can happen during the Super Bowl, but DraftKings has your back with early exit. If a player goes down in the first half, you still get paid out in cash immediately once your bet settles. No bonus bets, no waiting. So if that son of a bitch goes down, well, you're getting cash. If he don't go down, well, I think you ought to walk down there and have a talk with him, or maybe slip something in the Gatorade.
Let's not.
If he gets dizzy and starts walking in circles.
No Mickeys. Let's all
folks,
stay in your seat.
The Mickey Finn and the Gatorade. If you're new to DraftKings, folks, new customers can bet just $5 and get $300 in bonus bets if your bet wins. So you plop down $5, and if you win that, you get $300 in bonus bets. Holy shit. Well, you could do that 10 or 15, 20 times and still not be out any appreciable amount of money. And fuck, even if a gypsy has cursed you, you're bound to win something in that.
We can't speak about anyone's odds at doing anything, but of course, for responsible adults and gypsies everywhere,
and people who know math. Folks, right now you can download the DraftKings Sportsbook app and use the code Cornette. That is my name. Don't wear it out, but use it as a code Cornette to turn $5 into $300 in bonus bets if your bet wins, in partnership with DraftKings Sportsbook app. The crown is yours to do with as you will. Stomp on it, give it away, wear it proudly. It's your crown. Lord only knows if you'd take care of it, it'd be worth something someday. But folks, that's the deal. Put up a little bit of money, $5, get potentially a lot of money in bonus bets, $300 if your bet wins. And you use the code Cornette to make that financial windfall a reality. Have I covered everything, Brian?
I believe you've covered everything, Brian. Remember, the crown is yours with DraftKings.
Yes, and the rest of the copy is mine. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. New York, call 877-78-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY. Connecticut, call 888-789-7777. or visit ccpg.org on behalf of Boot Hill Casino in Kansas. Wager tax pass-through may apply in Illinois. 21 plus in most states, void in Ontario. Restrictions apply. Bet must win to receive bonus bets which expire in 7 days. Minimum odds required. For additional terms, good Lord, and responsible gaming resources, see dkng.co/audio. Limited time offer.
The crown is yours.
Void where prohibited by sundown.
All right, well, Jim, it's not sundown yet here on this show. What else do we have?
It's not. Well, don't just act like, what else do we got?
What else you got for us today here, Jim?
Well,
entertain us.
Let me entertain you. Let me make you smile. Let me do a few tricks, some old and then some new tricks. I'm very versatile. You know, Brian, one of the things I mentioned I was doing last week around the castle was cleaning out drawers and going through sorting things, trying to get a fresh start on the year, examining my projects, things I have going on, etc. And in going through another stack of old paperwork, I have come across an even bigger stack of TNA paperwork, agent reports, and various communiques that I had with the TNA folks back in the 2000s. And when I read some of them here on a program a few months ago, they were very popular with the audience. And I thought that people might get a tickle out of these. Also, these are a little different, and I will explain how, but there's more of them. Hear that stack?
Wow. How many are there?
Well, here's the thing. This wasn't really agent reports per se, although they kind of were the same form. But the ones that I had before, remember, those were the ones that I was sending to Terry Taylor, that I was typing up and emailing to the office. That was after Jeff had been exiled and Terry Taylor's wanting all these agent reports, and he'd all be truthful and give your real feelings. And I'd brought those up, as I told you, because I had the email and I'd searched them up and reprinted them, right? Well, these come from when I first joined the company, the first year, when I did not have email. Because you know this, I didn't get email until we put my website up in 2009. We put the website up because I'd done the Midnight Express book, and that was the marketplace to sell it. And when I got my first website set up, they came email too. So I got email in March of 2009, if anybody's wondering. Before then, I typed everything on my electric typewriter here, and I either faxed it, or because I was going down there at one point so often, I would just maybe carry the fucking thing with me. But I have copies of my original typed. And as I said, these are not reports per se. This started when I made the deal. I debuted on TNA, and it was June of 06, because that was the Slammiversary pay-per-view or whatever. But Jeff had asked me when we made the deal in May, he said, well, watch the shows and let me know what you think. So this starts in May of 2006 with the first TNA TV shows that I watched. And they were not meant to be circulated in the office. This was Jeff asking me personally, write this down and give it to me and tell me what you think about my television show. So that's where we're at with this. Is that fairly well laid out, Brian, the premise here?
I think so. So this is 3 years before the previous reports you talked about, which were at the end of your TNA run. This is...
Yes, this is the beginning.
The other side of it.
The other side. Oh, and I got one thing that's out of order here, but this is... I found a one sheet from November of 2006. Remember, I've said that when they did the pay-per-view, I think it was in St. Louis with the electrified cage, and Bubba Dudley was pissed off and screamed fuck into the camera, and guys had been going into business language wise for themselves, right? So this was from November 19th, 2006 at the tapings, they had a sheet for all the talent. And we had to sign this and date it, and Terry Taylor had to sign it. And then he'd give us the copy back or whatever. But it says, in consideration for my continued association with TNA Entertainment, I agree that the TNA Talent Policies and Procedures booklet, dated May 23rd, 2006, shall be amended as follows, effective immediately. Number 1, TNA will assess a $50 fine for each unauthorized use of the following words during the shows or events listed in item 4 below. These words, Brian, are ass and damn. Ass and damn cost you $50 a piece. Because to be honest, besides the fact that most of the time they're in an amusement park, they're at Universal Studios, right? In the audience, there's kids in the audience. The network didn't like the language, and the office wanted to keep it rare to where when you did let somebody cuss, it landed, it meant something, because everybody just didn't have Tourette's, right? So all these things were going on. But ass and damn unauthorized was $50 a piece. Notice unauthorized. TNA will assess a fine equal to 50% of the talent's pay-per-view pay.
Whoa.
Half of your pay-per-view pay for each use of the following word, each use of the following words during the shows or events listed in item 4 below. Those words, fuck, shit, and bitch. Now, bear in mind, this is a company that just a month beforehand hired Vince Russo. But it's going to cost you half your pay-per-view payoff if you say bitch.
Well, each time. What if you say like two bitches and a fuck? Is that like...
Well, two bitches and a fuck, that means you owe them half. And then number 3, talent remains subject to fines and amounts to be determined by TNA for using obscene gestures or obscene language in addition to the words described above during the shows. And item 4, it applies to all Impact shows, pay-per-views, live events, TV tapings. They had to... And I don't know whatever became of this, because I don't know that anybody ever got fined. And I remember Russo would write the word bitch in the fucking script. So it's like the call is coming from in the house. Who do you believe?
When you say he would write the word bitch, you mean like, you tell her she's a bitch or you're a bitch?
Yes, like yes. That's, and hoes and bitches and skanks. He loved that shit. Anyway, but now we start chronologically. And the thing is, is there a way to watch the TNA television shows from 2006 anymore? Do they have any service? Is that out there anywhere?
I don't know for sure, actually, because I never heard anyone talk about it. I think they did have a service for a while that gave you access to the old television shows, but I have no idea.
Well, this was the show from May 18th, 2006. As I said, we made the deal, and I've told it before, but I'd been talking on and off to Dutch Mantell. He'd wanted me to come since the previous summer. When I'd left the WWE, I still had the piece of OVW, and I started doing stuff for Gabe Sapolsky and Ring of Honor. And I told Dutch, I was burnt out on wrestling, and I wouldn't want to do that much. And also, I think at one point, Russo was still there when we started talking. But then finally, a year later, Dutch, we want you to be the wrestling czar, the commissioner, the authority figure, whatever. Russo was gone. Okay, I'll do it. And my original deal with Jeff was that I was going to be the commissioner, and I would probably make 8 tapings a year, 8 trips to Florida, and they would pre-tape stuff if they needed to, if I wasn't there, whatever. And that's what it was going to be. And with that, Jeff said, well, have you ever seen the show? And I said, no. He said, well, watch it, prep up on who the guys are and what's going on, and write down your thoughts and tell me what you think of my television show. Okay, now it's Jeff asking me to hand him something personally. Again, there's no reason for me to be politically correct or businesslike in a corporate environment or whatever, because I've known him since he was 12 years old. And I've managed him. I've worked with him. I'm going to tell him what my opinion is of his TV show. That doesn't mean I think he's going to be mad at me, right? Because we're in the wrestling business. And I'd never seen it. And again, let's remember Russo was not there at this point. And I'm not going to read this whole goddamn thing because Samoa Joe bumper, well, these pieces are selling him great. You know, things like that. But just...
No, read it all. Read it all.
Well, okay. Oh, goddamn. Okay. In that case, this is going to be an ongoing multi-part segment.
Good.
But at the start of the May 18th, 2006 Impact program, and this was when they were still a 1-hour show on Spike, they did a sacrifice video, and that's all I identified it by, but it was one of Dave Sahadi's cool cold opens with the voiceover. And I said, this is great. It makes TNA look cool. It's great video work, etc. Show open, beauty shot, TNA voiceover, or TNA voiceover. Good setup. I said, to me, too much pyro blew off with no... Remember when they would just blow a goddamn, every bit of pyro they had off on the empty stage at the start of the show and then have crowd shots and go to the announcers? I went, what the fuck? Give the guy the pyro. That's why I've got the tinnitus, by the way, in my squishy ear. Christian entrance, Christian Cage. Walk into people bit is great. They didn't overdo that back then. And he was trying, the crowd liked it, but he's dressed so fucking bland, I'm not seeing a star. These are not even flashy or pricey street clothes. Promo seemed to lack some passion, but the people liked it. Monty Brown appears. Remember him?
Yeah, you know what? If you went back 20 years, which actually is what we're doing right now.
Yes.
People thought he was going to be a star for like the next 10 years or so. And WWE thought so. And it didn't happen, but he was one of the big stars of TNA when I first started checking out TNA.
Yes. And it may have happened. I don't know about in TNA, but
the Serengeti, right?
But as I recall, something happened to a member of his family, and he ended up quitting the wrestling business and I'm willing to be corrected if I'm remembering this wrong, but he quit the business to get a job or to do something where he didn't have to travel because he had to take care of some children in the family or somebody in the family. Or elsewise, he may have, he may have made it eventually. But I said, Monty Brown appears, looks great, delivery a little stagey. And then I just wrote other talent appear because it's one of those deals where people started coming out. And then Larry Zbyszko was the authority figure at that point. And Jeff Jarrett comes out and Steiner comes out and then Sting drops out of the ceiling, right? So there was all these people converging at once. And so I said, other talent appear, told me who they were, a little rushed, but you're trying to hit the audience with stars. Announcers could have been more credibly surprised. By the time Jeff and Steiner cut the promo and Sting dropped in out of the ceiling, you had all the star power in the ring, but Zbyszko gets the best line of the night for, now that I have your undivided attention. After all the people, helicopters have flown these people in, it's just chaos. And then Zbyszko, well, now that I've got your attention. And Larry had to do the complicated promo, where as the authority figure at that point, he was laying out all this stuff. And I said, Larry's announcement was pretty complicated, and some of the guys in the promo needed more bass in their voice. And then the Samoa Joe bumper, these pieces sell him to me great. I knew Joe because I was working at the same time at Ring of Honor, which we'll get into that at some time in this series. AJ Styles, Samoa Joe, Christopher Daniels, I think, is it Bobby Roode? Possibly. Also, a lot of those guys were working for Ring of Honor at the same time they were working for TNA. And they were coexisting, and I was doing the same. So I knew some of these guys to begin with, but then that'll hit a bump in the road later on. Anyway, segment 2. Team Canada entrance. This team needs one ass kicker for credibility. Team USA entrance. USA is doomed. These guys are puny. And remember, it was because the creative team at this time was not just Jeff Jarrett and Dutch Mantell, but it's Scott D'Amore and Lord, I think Jeremy Borash was on it. And D'Amore was the manager of Team Canada. That was Petey Williams and other people. And then it was kind of like some of the X Division guys. It was a little confusing. But they had a match, Petey Williams against Chris Sabin. And this was when nobody but Petey Williams was doing a Canadian Destroyer, so that was kind of his thing. But I wrote about the match. This is souped up Billy Robinson versus Tony Charles, but with no stiff old British bastards. Great athletically, but no emotion. I don't know anything about either one of them except their home country because they're too busy tumbling to show me their personality. These kids can be good if they slow down and act a little pissed off. Does that sound familiar, Brian?
Well, you're consistent, if anything.
So then the segment 3 was part 2 of the match. Part 2 picked up, nice finish. Kevin Nash hits the ring and gets over better than anybody on the show. All the other guys became inconsequential midgets. As long as it's okay to bury these little X guys, Nash will get over with this, but nobody else will. Remember when that for months, all that Nash was doing was interacting with the X Division guys, Shelley and Sabin and Petey and all those guys, and Jay Lethal, it's that whole group. And he was making top money, but he was just advising them and cutting promos with them and doing segments with them and wrestling rarely, if at all. And I'm like, well, what? Well, he wants to get the X Division guys over. What? He's getting himself over. Which, I mean, at least somebody knew how to get theirself over. But anyway, let's see, a question. Why does Borash dress like he just got fired from a Vegas lounge act? and that's it. Jeremy Borash, I like Jeremy Borash. We got along great once I got to know him, and he's a very intelligent guy. But the problem was that Borash he wanted to be in the television business instead of the wrestling business. Or the television business was more important to him than the wrestling business. And he worked his ass off behind the scenes and producing stuff. But as later on in the year, when Shitstain would show his ugly face again, Borash was up for any preposterous comedy sketch or any preposterosity because it was all about TV and entertainment. That's where he was looking. And so great guy, and we never argued or anything, but I think he just had more TV gaga than wrestling gaga to him. Nevertheless.
And he's now currently a part of WWE's creative committee, enterprise, whatever it is, right? He's a part of it now.
Well, how come he's not on Unreal?
Maybe they said, that suit is a step too far. Michael Hayes can get away with it. You can't.
That suit's way too unreal for us. Let's see, segment 4. Steiner entrance. Great intensity from Scott. Snatches Don West and cuts promo. Samoa Joe out for confrontation. Great. I buy both of these guys as badasses and want to see more. And then Samoa Joe versus Chase Stevens. Announcers, even after being roughed up, ignored this match too much. Joe went into his hold and they missed it till after the tap because they were still registering getting jerked around. And then Andy Douglas run in. Why did Joe even take one step back from this guy? Oh, he was one of the naturals. Yeah, he was the partner.
I was going to say, I don't remember who that is, Andy Douglas.
Chase Stevens and Andy Douglas were a team.
I remember the Naturals. I forgot that name, yeah.
Apparently, I guess Andy's gone. Anyway, segment 5, Team 3D promo. The bickering brother bit is good. Bubba seemed to be reciting from memory some. Last piece of bickering, maybe too much. Borash made too much ha-ha face at close. 3D maybe should try, or 3D maybe try too much comedy in these spots, because they were even then trying to be ha-ha. There's, 10,000 stand-up comics out of work and they're telling jokes.
Well, if you really think about it, from the beginning of the Dudley Boys, that's the way Paul Heyman used them. They were serious, and eventually when Bubba Ray Dudley and Devon turned heel, they would really get the crowd going and everything, but the little interstitial clips that they would put into the show were like little comedy bits where Bubba was, first he was stuttering and then he would dance, and there were other members of the family. They've been doing comedy since the beginning of the team.
Well, they never got good at it. Anyway, then we had a King of the Mountain match between Abyss and Rhino. And I guess the King of the Mountain match, is a no DQ match. I was just writing this, seeing it for the first time. But I said, I'm a fan of both of these guys, but to me, this match did nothing for either one of them. Abyss sells punches in the corner while holding the ropes. You know what I'm saying? He's backed in the corner. He's got his hand on either one of the top ropes. The guy's just wailing on him in his face. He doesn't let go of the ropes. That was a Vince McMahon pet peeve on the chokes or the punches in the corner. And then Rhino throws way too many punches. Think about this. If these guys are both big and supposed to be physically dominant and not just, sell like junior heavyweights. If Rhino backs him in a corner and punches him 10 times, even if he's selling it with his head, if he doesn't let go of the ropes and he doesn't go down to a knee, how hard can Rhino punch? It's not flattering. So anyway, Rhino throws way too many punches. The fans died too quick after the jump start and stayed there. To break after a foot to the face was flat as well. Segment 6, match part 2. This match badly needed a manager or something. Yes, we ended up with two big guys, who shouldn't sell trying to register too much. Should have slowed down, thrown fewer blows, and sold smarter. Rhino made a half-hearted comeback out of nowhere. Run in out of nowhere by Rude and D'Amore. Where was the DQ when D'Amore ended up in the ring? This buried the referee. Was this a no DQ match? If so, why? Rhino took Abyss's finish for the 1-2-3, okay. But over a minute later, he's still out and D'Amore is spitting on him. These heels needed to give him more to sell to get this much heat, and whether these heels should get that much heat on Rhino is debatable. The end of the show.
What was the date of the show?
May 18th, 2006. And then, I'm sorry.
So you typed this up after the fact?
Yes, when I watched it.
And then how did you deliver this to Jeff?
Well, I think this was probably one of the faxes, because I wasn't there. I didn't start till June, so I didn't wait a month to give it to him. Although this is all weekly stuff, so I probably faxed it, I would say. Remember those?
I do. Remember the paper.
Yeah, that was actually the new fax. The last fax I had faxed on regular paper. The fax I had in Smoky Mountain faxed on that roll of paper shit, and then all the ink fades off. You can barely read the shit anymore. Anyway, May 25th is the next show. If you want me to keep going here, I just want to give you a little more idea of this because I got into a little more detail.
Keep going.
Segment 1, May 25th, 2006. Senshi, who was low-key, versus Shark Boy versus Jay Lethal versus Alex Shelley in a 4-way match. They were doing it even then, folks, but they weren't as worn out as they are now by any means. But anyway, here's what I said. Good use of these guys, as you can't tell how small they are. Shark Boy's a good kid, but that gimmick is still silly for me. Announcers never explain the rules of the match. They tag, but then they don't. They jump in right in front of the ref, etc. These guys' work didn't tell me who the baby faces or the heels are. Sensei works heelish, but people cheer him. He fights with Shelley, who is clearly a heel. The stacked up double superplex powerbomb thing was so staged it was ludicrous. And Sensei's finish looks good but dangerous. choreographed tumbling. Then Nash comes out, gives a half-ass effort, and gets over. Shelley looks like he's in 8th grade next to Nash. And then we go backstage with the King of the Mountain update, and Borash is very distracting with all of that clothing he's wearing. That was seg 1. Any thoughts?
No, this is good.
I'm consistent.
You are.
I mean, because if it doesn't make sense 20 years ago, it doesn't make sense today. Things that don't make sense don't start making sense. Seg 2 is like a King of the Mountain video and rules. Stipulations of match a little confusing, but this helped. Diamonds entrance. These guys have a good Diamonds in the Rough is what it was. They had a team named Diamonds in the Rough. Whoever they may have been.
Yeah, who were they?
I don't remember. But I said Diamonds ITR, and I'm like, Diamonds inside the ropes? But no. Diamonds in the Rough. They wrestled Styles and Daniels. And I said this was just a rush 2-minute match to set up the finish. There was no time to set up much. And America's Most Wanted run in with a billy club was an awkward shot by Harris. That's when Storm and Harris were teamed up as America's Most Wanted.
All right. Well, Diamonds in the Rough were led by Simon Diamond, which was Lance Diamond. And it also consists of Triton, Elix Skipper, and David Young.
Yeah, boy, those three had all kinds of things in common with each other. Anyhow, segment 3, they did an on-camera with Mike Tenay and Don West. This before I'd met Don West and hadn't seen Mike Tenay in probably ages and eons, but I said, these guys need to sync up their wardrobes. Mike is in a tux. Don looks like a used car dealer. Borash. Certainly there's a men's clothing dealer in Orlando that will do a trade to dress these guys like network TV sportscasters. Parenthetically, Borash especially. I thought, and still maintain, that at this point in the modern television era, that the announcers on the wrestling program should be dressed not only in a look that fit them, but also like the other major sports announcers in football, basketball, baseball, whether network or regional syndicated sports networks. What do they look like? That's what you need to look like. When you've got a guy in a tuxedo like the old days, another guy that's just there but dressed more casually, and then again, Borash looks like he's fucking the piano man in the lounge. Make everybody look like they're on the same fucking team, and this is a professional broadcast. So nothing ever changes with me, but that's why I was wearing matching suits and navy blues and grays, because I wasn't a personality that needed to be exposed in a flamboyant, flashy fashion at that point. I was an authority figure, same as OVW television announcer or whatever. I think one year at Derby time, I wore the yellow sport coat with some black slacks and thought I looked very Bockwinkel-ish, and Russo buried me behind my back. Anyhow, the next segment the next thing in segment 3, remember the James Gang. It was Road Dogg Jesse James and Billy Gunn. They were calling them the James Gang then. And they came out because they were working a program with Team 3D, Bubba and Devon. So they came out as the baby faces dressed as Team 3D to do the parody on them. And my description was, this has been done to death. The announcers were laughing along with it too much. It seemed forced. Brian is a great promo, but this was only entertaining to smart fans, the live audience, and the boys, because the live audience was smart fans at this point in Orlando at the free admission at the soundstage. All they did was material on fucking ECW and Philadelphia. And the smart fans had to be smart fans to know what the fuck they were talking about. And that's why I said the boys and the smart fans, the casual fan didn't give a shit that they were slandering Philadelphia because they didn't know why. And it got a lot better when Brian got serious, because then he dropped the facade and he cut a serious promo on it. But again, they were trying to narrow cast to the limited amount of people that would understand what they were referring to from at that point almost 10 years earlier.
Was this before or after Russo made them the Voodoo Kin Mafia, VKM?
This is before. No, he ain't got. I'm already picking it apart, and he ain't got there yet. So, Raven did a VTR promo, quick and okay, but Jesus, he looks 100 years old. What happened? I think that was when he had white hair. He was in a white outfit, or he had gray hair. Something happened, and he went with the white. I don't know. Seg 4, Andy Douglas versus Bobby Roode. What the fuck is with the referee's pants? That was Slick Johnson was wearing shorts. Remember when that Slick Johnson wearing shorts? Yeah. Both these guys looked good and had a nice athletic match. With the finish, heat after, Chase Stevens hitting the ring, Team Canada. By Rhino's save, both baby faces looked pretty impotent. Rhino's promo and announced handicap match was timed great and got over great. Shane Douglas out to look at the naturals was a bit anticlimactic here. I think they were going to have Shane take the naturals under his wing. In the back, Jeremy Borash with Ron Killings for a promo. I wrote, Rufus R. Jones lives.
Oh, that's not fair.
Well, Ron Killings 20 years ago, he was a little green. Anyway, segment 5. Christian Cage, enter to announce desk. A star does not dress this way. He's got a $10,000 belt and he's wearing a $20 t-shirt. This one, I believe he was the NWA champion, I think. Then Monty Brown entrance. God, I hope this guy can work. Ron Killings entrance. King of the Mountain match. This is the qualifiers for the big King of the Mountain multi-man match they were going to have. Monty Brown versus Ron Killings. Obviously, these guys have spent more time in the gym than the ring, but they worked hard. Went to break abruptly. Match part 2, Christian's forte does not seem to be color commentary. Okay match, schoolboy finish, got out of it. So I'm just giving some, they're going to get detailed as they go along. Actually, this third show's a little more detailed yet, but I was getting in my groove. But
I'm surprised to hear what you're saying about Christian, because I always kind of felt that way, and I always felt like he was one of those guys that people like you never felt any of that negative. I was always like, oh, he's a star, he's Christian, he's great in the ring, but I agree with everything you're saying back then.
Well, I saw him also in his very first fucking tryout match. He wasn't a star then, so it's not like I just assumed he's always been a star, but at the same point, he can work. And as he's proven in modern times, he can talk. He got it down if he wants to. But point is here, it was a combination of it. I don't think they had given him a look or a direction. And it wasn't, he needed to blossom a little better because it's 20 years ago. He got a little flashier as we went along. Anyway, one more show here on this one. The TNA Impact for June 1st, 2006. Jeff Jarrett promo was a good hot show opener. Scott Steiner entrance attacked Don West and went to ring. To me, this was hot and exciting, but going too far to attack West without discipline by TNA. You're muscling around the announcers. Sting and Raven hit. Good four-way action. Good Impact segment. Why does Raven look like the old man of the sea? What the fuck had he done to himself then? I'm trying to remember. So then we had the open and the beauty shots. Nice look. America's Most Wanted with Gail Kim entrance. These three look great together. That was Storm, James Storm, Chris Harris, and Gail Kim. Naturals entrance. Nice looking babyface team. Naturals versus AMW. Fast start, good team moves. I know announcers have to tell stories, but they were off this match too much because I wanted to know more about the guys in the ring as individuals. Baby faces have good fire, but rush the comeback. Daniels and Styles steal the Billy Club. The babyface refuses it, and the heels go over. Why did this dumbass turn down a shot at a weapon that was about to be used against him? This makes a putz instead of a face. They're still doing this shit 20 years later, aren't they?
Yeah, totally.
Douglas walks off disgusted watches disgusted as heels murder faces. If I was Shane, I'd walk off too. That's why they were telling these guys obviously need guidance because they're fucking idiots. So Shane was going to help them and possibly get them booked on the night shift at Target or whatever. So then Borash with Alex Shelley. This is before I'd ever met Jeremy. So just his wardrobe alone was getting under my skin. Shelley is a good promo, but the nerd announcer being bigger than him kills me. Can we get some of these guys' phone books to stand on? It would make a big difference. Nash came in to make Shelley his little buddy. So then in segment 3, we got Nash with Shelley in his Nash with Shelley entrance. That's just, Shelley's in the match, but I put Nash with Shelley entrance because that's the way it looked. Nash is stealing all the fucking oxygen, right? Shelley versus Jay Lethal. And again, I've always been a big Jay Lethal fan. I said Nash is dressed like a 7-foot pro golfer. Because that's the thing. He just get in the car and drive over from his house like fucking 45 minutes. And he'd just be dressed in leisure wear. Don West gives a good explanation of the X Division philosophy. Lethal is great for his age. After the heat and the Sabin save, Sabin's promo was too cute. He needed more bass in his voice, and Nash acted more scared of a bad cold. Samoa Joe VTR, personality pieces like this really sell him, treat him like a star. He was on a wonderful trajectory until Shitstain got there. All right, now our weekly check-in on the Team 3D and James Gang fucking angle. Seg 4, Borash with Team 3D seemed a little scripted. Bubba using the word parody seems incongruous. Too funny for ass kickers, and they're pissed about a bingo hall, but can't say the letters ECW, so it's just confusing. The mother/horror line was way too awkward. I don't even remember what that was. The mother horror line was way too awkward. This whole program strikes me as two teams who are pissed at each other for reasons I don't get or buy, trying to be funnier than the other, with one trying to put a bankrupt promotion over and the other's mad because they used to be in the WWF. These two teams are good, but I would re-rack their whole issue and start over.
Wow.
Do you think I was being too critical?
No, I think you were laying it out the way it was.
This is before I started the job.
This got you the job.
No, he gave me the job, then I did this, and then I started. But nevertheless, we were in the office with Zbyszko, Styles, and Daniels. Good match set up, and Slick Johnson in with the Stooge report was good. Now I buy Slick's shorts because now I understood they were selling Slick as the goddamn office suck-up and stooge and a slimy character that needed to stand out as a referee. So then once that I was in on it, I fucking got it. Anyway, Seg 5, Samoa Joe DVD spot. This is great because even though it's a commercial, it sells me on the talent. Christian comments and King of the Mountain highlights effective. Jarrett with Gail Kim enters into crowd to find Raven. Raven jumps into brawl. Good action. Jarrett versus Raven. Is Raven now an albino? What the This was great action, but announcers are not telling me why there is no DQ for chairs, etc. Raven elbow through the table. Holy shit, great break spot. This is before you've had a table break in every fucking segment also. Seg 2, match part 2, concession stand brawl. That's where they went outside and fought in the concession area. Holy Tupelo. Crowd hot, great stuff. There needed to be a stipulation to explain how this match could still be going on. Good finish. What a guitar shot Larry took, Zbyszko. And so they had a nice little fucking fight there. A nice 1 hour show. Boom. You want me to go for the last one here real quick? The June 8th program. This is the last time until I get there live.
All right. So this is the last, I guess, was this one taping or two tapings you covered? Do you know?
Well, it was 4 shows, whatever the fuck they did in the 4 shows, or however they did it. Because as I said, I wasn't there yet, right? That I didn't start until.
Right. But were they taping every 2 weeks or every month?
Well, sometimes one and sometimes the other, because I'm trying to think back, and I may have to go get more of my books, but when I first started, they were only doing the 1 hour show. So therefore they could do 3 hours of television in the same night. And then they would do a pay-per-view and a taping, and then they'd be off and they'd come back 3 weeks later, maybe do 2 TVs, come back 2 weeks later with a pay-per-view. And you see where I'm going. Or sometimes they do 2 days of taping, do 2 shows each night and have 4 done. But my original deal with goddamn Jeff was I'll do 8 trips to Orlando a year, and it morphed into like, I think 23. So on average, they were doing something twice a month. Once the show became 2 hours, they couldn't tape more than one in a single taping. So they had to do a separate day of TV for each TV show. You see where I'm going with this?
Yeah.
Anyhow, so this was the show on June 8th, and the next report I have is the Impact. The Impact from June 22nd that they were recapping Slammiversary, and that's where I debuted. So I'm missing one in here, but nevertheless, June 8th, VTR interviews with Sting, Jeff Jarrett, and Steiner. Emotional, great setup for match for the King of the Mountain. Steiner entrance. Would have loved to seen him burst right into the arena as the main pyro was fading. We lost some energy going backstage after the pyro and then before his entrance. Scott's a great looking heel. The Sting entrance, backstage shot didn't look as bad, but I just don't know that I like the unfinished backstage look. Remember when they had the big arena, the Impact Zone, and they would go in the back and it looked like they were under the bleachers at the high school gym? And I'm like, because it's a soundstage. Everything else is unfinished outside the arena or outside the main shot of the arena. The backstage area is bare fucking walls and goddamn studs. So anyway, Sting versus Steiner. Good brawl around and about. This had the star feel to it, went to break right on the nut shot and lost the impact of that. But in part 2 of the match, these guys have obviously slowed down from their athletic peaks, but they know how to work and have a good match that you can follow. I'd have loved to have seen Sting hot dog more on his comeback. He can get away with it. Gail Kim and Jeff run-ins, the false finish, the second referee in. The kick out before the 3 count was off somehow and people didn't get it, or it would have been a bigger pop. The rest of the finish came off great and Sting advanced to a big pop. Jeff and Steiner got heat. Killings made the save. Abyss in for more heat. Christian with the big save. I love it. The staggered run-ins. Predictable, but it all makes sense to get the pay-per-view plugged. Steiner stole the show. And not in a... Steiner co-ops the show. He steals the show and will not leave because Samoa Joe is next and he's mad at Samoa Joe. So they go to the break with that. Oh, I want to see what happens when Joe comes out. And in the next segment, Samoa Joe made his entrance and had a confrontation with Steiner. People were hot. They had a big schmoz. They had a pull apart. You got 2 big-ass, badass guys. This deal was over. And then Shelley had one of his little films that he'd make with his camera that would plug Nash's wrestling debut on TV the following week. So all those guys were just basically his minions to, get over and look even taller. Segment 4 was the Back in the Office, Zbyszko with Slick Johnson Stooge report. And then Sanjay Dutt versus Jarrell Clark. And that match was a backdrop for Conan and the announcers to tell the story of LAX and their angle. And that's it. LAX, of course, was Latin American Exchange. It was Homicide and Hernandez, remember? And I said,
were they
why
with
do
Conan?
they keep
Did they have Conan too at that time?
Yes, Conan was the
manager.
The manager / handler / coach, whatever. And he was having health issues at that time, so sometimes he was doing the wheelchair gimmick. But I said, why do they keep saying it's just like immigration reform? I know that. That's the point. But when they keep saying it, it reminds people that they're trying to hop onto a hot issue rather than just letting it speak for itself. See what I'm saying here? And, it seemed a little wordy for them to be the street thuggishness, but nevertheless. And then Seg 5, just some promos that I didn't say much about. And then a 6-man tag was closing the show with Team Canada versus Chris Sabin and the James Gang. And I said, a match started at a good pace. It seemed the people were deflated after such a hot show because this was a long night of taping, apparently. Billy Gunn did some nice shit here. Then part 2, the match seemed to drag, even though everybody was moving. Sabin and Rude picked it up. Good comeback by all the baby faces. The Rhino run-in got the people up, and good finish. And I said, Christy Hemme, she was still there then. I said, she sure has energy. She delivered the message to Don West to announce that Samoa Joe versus Scott Steiner would be happening, and that got a big pop, and that was a great way to finish the show, and I wrote, this is my favorite show so far. But those are the first 4 I'd ever seen. I didn't really know who was doing what or what was going on. And Jeff asked me to give some feedback. So there was obviously some positive things in there, and there was a few negative things, but it wasn't like anything that I was going to tear my hair out of my head about, right? Or anything that couldn't, one would think, be addressed or tweaked or whatever. And everybody seemed to be on the same page about things. And this is why I was initially hopeful at this new little venture that I'd gotten into. And that would last June, July, and August. And then we got the bad news about the new arrival. And then my agent reports I didn't do anything for September and October because I think that may have been, now that I look back on it, when I was convinced I had tried to quit and was convinced I was still going to quit. And then I started doing them again here by these dates with the 2-hour primetime debut on Spike, which, as I've mentioned before, is after Jeff had me come down and took me to sushi in Florida and said, we need more producers and agents. And you could help the show in that way also if you would come down every time. And I got more money for that, but also it was to, in hindsight, as I can see, try to have me there to counteract the influence of our friend, Mr. Russo, who would soon darken our doorstep. So that's kind of where we are right now, but I've still got June, July, and August to go. And then we get into November and December, and the reports start getting much more detailed and much more assertive until finally I found the letter that I wrote to Jeff about our friend Vince at the end of the year, when I believe I had been telling Dutch, now that I think about it in reflection, that I really don't want to make any more of these fucking trips anyway again. And he said, why don't you put everything you want to say about this guy down and in writing and give it to Jeff and let him mull it over? And I did. And we'll get to that in chronological order.
I don't remember. Who brought Russo back? Was it Jeff or was it Dixie?
Well, see, that's why I was mad, because when Dutch first called me up and told me about it, he said, well, we made changes in the creative team and we didn't fire him from the whole company, but we dropped Damore and Borash, and they had a few other young guys, indie-minded guys that I didn't see how would mesh well with Jeff and Dutch. And I said, well, that's a good move to just concentrate on you two. And he said, but we hired Russo. And that's when my brain exploded and I started trying to quit. But with what we know now, it was obviously Dixie. But I was still under the assumption, because I was just assuming I'm working for Jeff Jarrett. Jeff Jarrett's a boss in my eyes. This thing wouldn't be here if it hadn't been for Jeff Jarrett. I will let Jeff Jarrett tell me what to do. I'm not in any way working for Dixie fucking Carter. She's the investor. So I didn't at that point think that Dixie, as the investor, would do something stupid like tell the goddamn head of the company, Jeff Jarrett, you got to hire this fucking idiot back, even though we fired him already. So I was convinced that Jeff was on board with it and spent the next several months trying to get Dutch to tell me why. What does he see in this fucking guy? But anyway, the letter was at the end of the year, and then I've got these things through, and then they get a little shorter, and then I've got them through March. And I think that this may have been when I just said, well, fuck it, I'm tired of typing, because nothing is changing.
Well, more in the future, something to look forward to, your TNA reports from 2006. Jim, before we wrap things up, some breaking news.
And they still had bigger ratings than they do now on AMC with their big production, even though it was just a little mom and pop shop then.
Jim, some breaking news.
Delinquent daughter. Yes, breaking news.
Breaking news before we wrap things up.
Yes.
A message has gone out, I don't know if this is from Twitter or Instagram, from Ava, WWE, the general manager of NXT, the daughter of The Rock.
Uh-oh.
This past Tuesday was my last appearance on NXT and subsequently WWE.
Oh!
Thank you to all who have cheered, watched, and supported me throughout my journey. While my decision to not renew my contract was very difficult, it's also a new turning point in my life. It has been an honor and a privilege to be Ava.
My decision not to renew my contract. Yeah.
Oh, who did that? Who did that at the beginning of AEW? What was her name? Big Swole. Remember, it was like
Big Swole.
We
yeah.
both decided it'd be best for me to leave. What does this say?
We have both sat down and decided that that's like when Tony Atlas sent me a letter when he stood me up on coming to start in Smoky Mountain. My wife and I both sat down and looked at our expenses. And we decided I would not be able to come to Tennessee at this time when he was jobless and sleeping on a park bench. I didn't offer him enough money, but it had nothing to do with the sexy blonde teenager that was going to be his manager on the road away from his wife. But go ahead, Brian, what were you going to say?
You know, what I was going to say is we always talked about when will the day come where we see the Dwayne Johnson Triple H feud play out. Roman Reigns just called that creative in an interview on a WWE friendly show.
While the daughter of The Rock has decided not to renew by mutual agreement.
Suddenly. It wasn't like they wrote her off the show, I don't think, on Tuesday or anything. We didn't hear anything about that. It's just she's not going to return. Someone new's going to come out and be like, you remember that person last week? She'll never use that name again, quite literally. What do you think Dwayne Johnson thinks?
I think, in the words of the poet Ronnie Van Sant, there's something going on that we don't know. And this may be only the tip of the iceberg, the tip of the rock, a little piece of the rock. A tiny, tiny pebbles in the bowl. What am I doing? What am I saying?
I don't know, but, it makes you wonder either they said, you're not going to come back, you could put out a friendly tweet about it, or The Rock said, you know what, honey? Shad Khan style, it's time for you to have your inheritance now. Do whatever you want. And unlike Tony, she said, I want to get out of the wrestling business.
Yeah. In that case, I'm getting the fuck away from all you motherfuckers. Well, I mean, it's probably best because I'm sure that many people were nice to her, to her face and didn't want to be rude or whatever, either because they liked her personally or they didn't want to make her father mad. But no, she had no business on a fucking wrestling show doing any goddamn thing. She didn't need to be on television. Since she'd been on the air, people decided to quit breathing it. When she walks into a bank, they turn off the cameras. Can I stress more how she doesn't need to be on television?
No, she was not a very good on-air performer. She didn't have the voice, the charisma, the delivery. She was towering over male and female talent. And there was nothing, it wasn't like she was a former star. And they said, all right, well, you're not wrestling anymore, you're a GM. Not that that's justified, but at least that's happened. It makes sense. It was, all right, you were kind of on this TV a few times, and you're the daughter of The Rock, so you're the GM.
Yeah. And the fans were never going to give her a break because she was obviously a Nepo hire. It's, again, they were trying to be nice in every way to The Rock, but that's not fair to the girl. That's not fair to when sometimes these people get put in these positions, they can't win. They're not going to be any good. They look awkward and fans are just going to laugh at them. It's not a favor to them to give them a job they're not qualified for.
Well, an all-out war may break out if Nia Jax gets released next. We'll see.
Anyhow, speaking of which, we're going to do this again coming up shortly in a few days as your program, and then this again next week as my program. And we keep doing this all through the year. Just all the time. You can't get away from us.
But a big week of shows coming up, the Royal Rumble review and so much more.
That's right. We'll be rumbling on the next program. And then next week, I'm going to keep this stack of papers here because, as I said, as I get down there and we go to a 2-hour show in primetime on Spike, and then my friend comes in, these things get a lot more goddamn detailed. And as I haven't even read all of them yet, but as I was looking, I'm like, my God, some things never change. They're doing the same stupid shit 20 years later in the wrestling business that I was seeing for the first time 20 years ago going, where the fuck did this shit come from and why are these guys doing it? Patient zero of bad indie style wrestling coming up in the future on the Jim Cornette Experience. Until then, Brian, any closing thoughts?
We'll see you on the drive-thru. Everyone everyone stay warm. Everyone stay warm and stay safe.
Warm, safe. I'll say them all. And until then, folks, thank you. Fuck you and bye-bye, everybody.